Chapter 1102. And in these few days, Lin Qifei's body had more or less recovered. As long as Chu Luiwei went one last time and let him use the last medicine, she could leave in peace. As for those people in Cold Mountain Valley, Chu Luiwei didn't put too much thought into it. Because she hadn't mentioned this matter to Rong Xiu yet, Rong Xiu had already let Yan Qing deal with those people herself. When they were finally able to leave, Chu Luiwei had coincidentally met them once. Han Quan had one leg and one arm crippled, and the remaining few people were more or less crippled. And they were the kind that was hard to recover from. After this, these people were basically crippled. In the future, not to mention improving, it was already extremely difficult for them to maintain their current realm. Under the Yuntian Tower, there were a total of 28 tribes. Previously, Rong Xiu had personally destroyed the unparalleled palace, and now even if he destroyed another Cold Mountain Valley, no one would care. Therefore, the people of Cold Mountain Valley didn't even dare to have resentment in their hearts, and could only flee with their tails between their legs. They were afraid that if they left too late, they would directly die here. The situation of Cold Mountain Valley and Lu Ruhai was quickly spread. Everyone discussed in private. At this time, some people finally realized that this newly ascended princess was not as weak and easy to bully as they thought. With such thoughts and methods, coupled with that kind of talent, it might not be difficult to gain a foothold in the Yuntian Tower. Chu Luiwei allowed outsiders to speculate and comment and ignored them all. In the Divine Ruins world, strength was respected. As long as she was strong enough, she could make these people obediently shut their mouths. Other than that, she had another very important thing to do. At noon on this day, it was rare that Rong Xiu was free, so Chu Luiwei pulled him to play chess together. After a fierce battle, Chu Luiwei was still defeated. Looking at the chessboard that collapsed in front of her, Chu Luiwei gritted her teeth. This man's talent and strength were extremely astonishing. She was afraid that it would be difficult to catch up to him in a short period of time. Chu Luiwei had no choice but to change the topic. Your Highness, there's something I forgot to ask. Do you know Jun Jiuqing? Rong Xiu paused in his actions and silently looked up at her. Then he nodded. Yes and no. Chu Luiwei frowned. How do you know each other? Logically speaking, the two of them had nothing to do with each other. And from the looks of it, Jun Jiuqing seemed to know a lot about the Yuntian Tower. With his identity as Prince Baiming, he really shouldn't know about this. He has also been to the Divine Ruins world before? Or was he originally from the Divine Ruins realm? Rong Xiu pondered for a moment and smiled. He was indeed born in the Divine Ruins realm, but he was sent back to the Dark North a long time ago. But he hasn't cut off contact with this side. Chu Luiwei nodded in understanding. If that was the case, many things could be explained clearly. But why was he sent back? Countless people in the world fought to enter the Divine Ruins realm and establish a foothold here. And Jun Jiuqing was like. At that time, the family he was in was very quarrelsome. In order to save his life, the people above sent him away. And that family has a good relationship with the Dark North, so. Then he's not the biological son of the Dark North Emperor? Of course not. But because of his special identity, Jun Qiji has always treated him like his own son. Even in the Dark North royal family, only a handful of people know about this. But you know, Chu Luiwei narrowed her eyes. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows and smiled. If I don't know about this, then the position of the Son of Heaven wouldn't be mine. He was just teasing with a smile on his lips, but Chu Luiwei's heart tightened when she heard it. She only had a rough idea of Rong Xiu's background and could finish it in a few words. But only Rong Xiu himself knew how much hardship and sadness was contained in these simple words. He was never recognized by the family, but he became one of the top existences in the family. It was obvious how much he had gone through. So, Jun Jiuqing has also returned to the Divine Ruins realm? Yes. Rong Xiu suddenly thought of something and his expression faded. Chu Luiwei was deep in thought. Although Jun Jiuqing had not broken through to the God realm, but, with such a background, it was not a big problem for him to enter and leave the Divine Ruins realm. Chu Luiwei rested her chin on one hand and muttered, but after all, he was raised outside. Could it be that his family really doesn't have any grudges? It's all because he has a good master. Rong Xiu said. Chu Luiwei was stunned. Master? His master is a student. Rong Xiu suddenly stopped halfway. Just as Chu Luiwei was about to ask again, there was a knock on the door. Your Highness, there's an urgent letter. It was Yumo's voice. Rong Xiu got up and went to open the door. Yumo respectfully handed it over and said, This is the academy. Before he could finish, Rong Xiu suddenly stopped him with a look. He glanced around and noticed that Chu Luiwei was inside. Yumo quickly fell silent. Rong Xiu did not open the letter. He just turned around and told Chu Luiwei that he had to deal with something temporarily and then left. Chu Luiwei's eyebrows twitched slightly. Study. Academy? Did Rong Xiu want to say this just now? Chu Luiwei could not think of an answer, so he simply put this matter to the back of his mind and went to see Lin Qifei for the last time. After a few days of careful recuperation in Yuntian Tower, Lin Qifei's complexion was much better. In the past, he looked like a piece of sparkling and fragile glass, but now he seemed to have a bit more of a human touch. Coupled with his gradually increasing strength, no one dared to underestimate him. Chu Luiwei brewed the last medicine. Lin Qifei held the medicine, paused for a moment, and drank it in one gulp. Thank you. He looked at Chu Luiwei with a serious expression. Chu Luiwei smiled and shook his head. It's nothing. But I'll have to trouble you with the teleportation formation. Lin Qifei nodded and then said, Actually, with my current strength, it might be a little difficult to complete this alone. So I think I'll think of a way to improve my strength first and then, sharpening the knife won't delay the cutting of wood. Chu Luiwei finished his sentence and smiled. Of course, it's no problem if you think so. But what do you plan to do specifically? Dongtongcliff? There shouldn't be anyone who can teach you, right? Even if there was, he might not trust them. Lin Qifei paused and said, I want to go to Lingxiao College first. Chu Luiwei was stunned. What? Lingxiao College? Lin Qifei saw her reaction and thought that she did not know, so he patiently explained, Lingxiao College is the top college in the Divine Ruins world. There are many top experts there. If you can cultivate there, you will definitely benefit greatly. So, Chu Luiwei suddenly thought of something and interrupted him. Rong Xiu also has contact with this college, right? Chapter 1103. Of course. Lin Qifei said matter-of-factly. His Highness the Holy Sun is one of the most outstanding students in Lingxiao College. Back then, His Highness the Holy Sun was in the limelight at Lingxiao College. However, in the past 2 years, His Highness rarely went back, so he kept a low profile. However, he is still admired by many students in Lingxiao College. Chu Luiwei was slightly stunned. He's a student there? But isn't he a member of Yuntian Tower? Why isn't he cultivating in the clan? Instead, Lin Qifei finally understood that Chu Luiwei's focus was wrong. He smiled faintly and explained. Princess, it seems that you really don't know much about Lingxiao College. Although it is called a college, Lingxiao College is definitely qualified to be called the top college in the world of Divine Ruins. Lingxiao College has a history of more than 10,000 years. It has a long history and a deep foundation. Even many first-class families may not be able to compete with it. There are the most powerful cultivators in the continent. It is rich in resources and is extremely rare. Therefore, in addition to those itinerant cultivators, many disciples of aristocratic families also want to cultivate in Lingxiao College. On one hand, you can get systematic guidance and cultivation in Lingxiao College. On the other hand, Lingxiao College students are all over the continent and most of them have deep feelings for Lingxiao College. If you can become a member of the college, you will undoubtedly broaden your network. No matter from which aspect, cultivating in Lingxiao College is the dream of countless cultivators in the world of Divine Ruins. Lin Qifei said and took a deep breath. There seemed to be waves in his clear eyes. It's the same for me. This was indeed an unattainable dream for Lin Qifei in the past. At that time, even going out was a problem for him. His body was always tormented. But it was different now. He already had a healthy body, so Lingxiao College did not seem so unattainable anymore. Chu Luiwei could see his deep yearning and expectation for Lingxiao College, and a little curiosity arose in his heart. Lin Qifei had an indifferent personality. It was rare to see him care so much about anything. He didn't even seem to care about the position of the cliff master of the Heavenly Cave Cliff. However, when he mentioned Lingxiao College, his expression was completely different. Was that academy really that powerful? Chu Luiwei couldn't help but tease him. It seems that this Lingxiao College is really good. Now that you've mentioned it, even I want to go and have a look. Lin Jifei's eyes suddenly lit up. He sat up straight and said, "It's not impossible for Wang Fei to think this way. With the talent you've shown, you'll definitely be accepted." No matter what, she was really just a rank 7 warrior now. If it was really as she said, that she didn't have any sects or clans to rely on in the Divine Ruins world, then Lingxiao College was the best place to go. Chu Luiwei also thought of this. She narrowed her eyes and began to seriously think about this matter. What you said makes sense. Other than being a little curious about Rongxiu, she could improve her cultivation and expand her network. It was simply the best of both worlds. Although Yuntian Tower was good, she always felt that it wasn't very free. When she thought of the few revered elders who were especially against her and Rongxiu, Chu Luiwei felt a little annoyed. It seemed inconvenient for her to do anything she wanted. Here, as the Wang Fei, her every word and action was always being watched. Thinking of this, Chu Luiwei wanted to go to Lingxiao College even more. "I'll think about this matter again," Chu Luiwei said and stood up. "As for you, just go if you want to. Just don't forget the agreement between us." Lin Qifei nodded solemnly. "Since Wang Fei has instructed, I will do my best." After Chu Luiwei returned to her bedroom, she began to think about Lingxiao College again. Dugu Mabao saw that she seemed to be a little absent-minded, so he asked casually, "What are you thinking about?" Chu Luiwei paused and asked, "Dabeo, have you heard of Lingxiao College?" Dugu Mabao paused in his actions and looked up at her without batting an eyelid. His pair of demonic purple eyes were deep and unreadable. "I've heard of it. Why did you suddenly think of it? I'm wondering if I should go and take a look." Chu Luiwei didn't hide her intentions from Dugu Mabao. "I heard that if I can go, it will be very beneficial to my cultivation." Dugu Mabao was expressionless. "Do you think that I'm not good enough to teach you?" "Of course not." Chu Luiwei glanced at him. Of course, she knew what an honor it was to be taught by such a god-level expert. But after all, a college was different from a person. "I just think that going to the college has its own benefits. To be able to stand in the world of divine ruins for 10,000 years, it must be an extraordinary existence." And Chu Luiwei paused for a moment. "And I have a feeling that this place is a little familiar." Dugu Mabao lowered his eyes. After a while he said, "To you." Then, as if he suddenly thought of something, he asked, "What did Rongxiu say?" Chu Luiwei waved her hand. "I don't intend to tell him about this." Dugu Mabao looked up in surprise. Chu Luiwei blinked and looked normal, as if she didn't think that there was anything strange about her actions. She had a feeling that Rongxiu seemed to be deliberately hiding something from her about Lingxiao College. The more he was like this, the more she wanted to go and see for herself. Dugu Mabao was silent for a while. "Many people already know that you are the princess of the Yuntian Tower, and many people have seen your face. They will know if they ask around." "You, who said that I want to go with this face?" Chu Luiwei laughed. Dugu Mabao immediately understood. "You've made up your mind?" "Yes." Chu Luiwei looked much more serious. "In addition to the reasons I told you before, there is one more thing. Jun Jiuqing seems to have a master over there. My father is still in Jun Jiuqing's hands, and I don't know where he is imprisoned. Maybe this is a way." This was actually the most decisive factor. At this point, Dugu Mabao finally nodded. But Chu Luiwei looked at Dabeo hesitantly. "Dabeo, you are a little too conspicuous. Why don't I find a mask for you? You don't have to worry about that." Dugu Mabao closed his eyes. "I will hide my identity on the way. After arriving at the college, no one will notice anything unusual." At night, Rongxiu came back. Just as Chu Luiwei was hesitating to find an excuse, Rong Xiu spoke first. "Or I have to go out for a while. I'm afraid I can't stay with you for the time being." In fact, the other side had been urging him for a long time. He really couldn't delay it, so he said this. Chu Luiwei almost instantly guessed that it must be related to Lingxiao College. "Then I will concentrate on cultivating during this time and wait for you." Chapter 1104. Rong Xiu kissed her forehead. "I've already sent people to investigate Lord Chu Ning's matter. After a while, there should be some clues." Chu Luiwei was stunned, and a warm current surged in her heart. She nodded slightly. That night, Rong Xiu was finally able to put away the blanket and lay on the bed. The two fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, Rong Xiu left, leaving Yu Mo to take care of Chu Luiwei. As soon as he left, a few revered elders came to see her. Chu Luiwei asked Yu Mo to reject them all, and only told them that she was going to start her seclusion. As the princess, Chu Luiwei was now living in the sacrificial god temple. Other than the clan leader and the Holy Sun, no one else was allowed to come here. Of course, there was now Chu Luiwei. So, as long as she didn't want to, these revered elders couldn't see her. So, Chu Luiwei stayed in the palace and started her seclusion, while Yu Mo waited outside attentively. It would be extremely troublesome to leave the cloud Tianke without anyone noticing, because from here, one had to go through the teleportation formation that led to the outside world. But it was different for Chu Luiwei, because she had the holy ring on her hand. So, she could easily open the teleportation formation in the sacrificial god temple. In addition, she also asked Dugu Mabao to help her leave a trace of her aura, and poured it into a puppet, pretending to be her. Coupled with the barrier, as long as Yu Mo didn't take the initiative to barge in, he wouldn't be discovered. Even if he realized that something was wrong, Chu Luiwei would have already left by then. So, Chu Luiwei quietly left the Yuntian Tower and went to Lingxiao College. Lingxiao College was very far from the Yuntian Tower. In addition, Chu Luiwei didn't dare to directly go through the Yuntian Tower's teleportation formation, so she deliberately took a few turns in the middle, which took more time. But fortunately, with Dugu Mabao, they had a smooth journey. After about 5 days, Chu Luiwei and Dugu Mabao finally arrived at Fang Prefecture. The Fang province was the closest city to the Spirit Firmament Academy. Everyone who wanted to enter Lingxiao College had to pass through here. Walking out of the teleportation formation, Chu Luiwei sighed as she looked at the city not far away, and sighed. Fang Prefecture? It's indeed worthy of its reputation. Under the bluish-purple sky, a majestic and quaint city sat on a vast plain. The grayish-white boulders were piled up, rough and imposing, and the pressure was heavy. Behind the city, there was a huge wall. Rumor had it that Lingxiao College was behind the city. Outside Lingxiao College, there's a barrier formed by divine power. Anyone who wants to enter must obtain a pass from Fang Prefecture. Dugu Mabao explained. Chu Luiwei nodded. At this time, the two of them had carefully dressed up. Chu Luiwei was wearing a long blue robe, with a white jade belt around her waist. She wore a golden crown on her head. She was tall and handsome. At first glance, she looked like a young master from a noble family. She didn't show off, but she didn't let others look down on her. As for Dugu Mabao, who was beside her, he had already transformed into the same black hair and black eyes as her. His appearance was also somewhat different from before. He had changed from a top-notch cute girl to an ordinary one. In the past, when he walked on the streets, his face could inspire the motherly love of almost all women. But now, he seemed to be very concerned about this, and deliberately disguised himself as an ordinary one. Except for the cold and indifferent look in his eyes, he was almost completely different from before. If people didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see anything unusual. Pass, Chu Luiwei murmured. Before coming, she had heard Dugu Mabao mention this matter. Lingxiao College was heavily guarded. Anyone who entered or left needed a pass. And there were only 2 ways to get this pass. First, it had to be related to the people in Lingxiao College. Second, find the teachers of Lingxiao College in Fang Prefecture, pass their assessment, and become a student of Lingxiao College. The first method was relatively simple, but it also had a disadvantage. The time inside was limited. Chu Luiyue couldn't expose her identity, so she could only choose the second method. Lingxiao College didn't accept students at a fixed time every year. As long as you were outstanding enough, you could come at any time. Therefore, in the world of divine ruins, almost every day, people came from all over to try to enter Lingxiao College. There were also some who stayed in Fang Prefecture and continued to cultivate while trying to find a way out. This was also one of the reasons why Fang Prefecture was so lively. However, in the end, there were only a few who could succeed. Let's go. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. Dugemabao shook his head. After entering Fang Prefecture, I won't travel with you. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Dugemabao paused. Seeing her confused expression, he gave a rare explanation. There are a few acquaintances here. I'll go and meet them. After that, I'll wait for you in Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue's eyes widened. At this moment, she suddenly realized that she seemed to have overlooked something. So, in fact, you can directly enter Lingxiao College. Dugemabao raised his eyebrows. Is that strange? His tone was too matter-of-fact, with a careless arrogance, so much so that Chu Luiyue began to doubt herself. After thinking carefully, Chu Luiyue felt that her question was meaningless. With Dugumabao's strength, it wasn't strange for him to be able to do this. She coughed. No, it's not strange. Don't make me wait too long. Dugemabao left these words, the void vibrated, and his figure flashed, instantly disappearing in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue. He was so straightforward. Chu Luiyue looked around. There were no less than 10 teleportation arrays here, but fortunately, the location of this teleportation array was relatively remote, and there was no one around, so no one paid attention to this place. She calmed herself down and began to walk forward. As she walked closer, Chu Luiyue realized that Fang Prefecture was different from ordinary cities. There was no one guarding the entrance here. In fact, there was not even a door. On both sides were walls piled up with grayish-white stones, and in the middle was a huge and wide doorway. There was even a piece of broken wall beside it, as if it had been cut by someone with a sword. It looks very casual. There were many people going in and out here. To be precise, most of them were going in, and only a small number were going out. Moreover, most of the people who went in were full of excitement and anticipation. On the other hand, most of the people who went out were full of dejection and disappointment, and their eyes were full of regret. Obviously, these people were cultivators who had given up on entering Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue stepped in. However, just as she stepped through the doorway, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the water droplet in her body. An unusually familiar feeling welled up in her heart. Chapter 1105. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. But this wave only surged for a moment, and before Chu Luiyue could react, everything was over. If not for the fact that Chu Luiyue could still feel the force surging in her dantian, she would have thought that it was just an illusion. Hey, are you still going in? If you're not going in, then hurry up and get out of the way. Suddenly, an arrogant shout came from behind. Chu Luiyue turned around to take a look. There were 3 young people. One was a woman, and 2 were men. They looked to be in their early 20s, and all of them were dressed in luxurious clothes and had good looks. They were surrounded by a noble aura. Obviously, they were disciples from big families. The one who spoke was a tall and thin man. The woman next to him said reproachfully, "Brother Sheng, what did the patriarch say before we came out? Have you forgotten? Remember to keep a low profile when you're outside." The tall and thin man seemed to listen to her words. He scratched his head and chuckled. "Aren't I afraid of being delayed? After all, 4th brother and the rest have been waiting for us in the academy for a long time." The woman smiled embarrassedly and said, "Actually, it's my fault. If I hadn't cultivated too slowly and only broken through to the 9th stage now, the 2 of you wouldn't have to wait for me until now." The 2 young men shook their heads. "You're a little young, but your talent is top-notch. When you enter Lingxiao College, you'll definitely be able to quickly break through to the God realm. Become a God-level master." Chu Luiyue's heart moved slightly, and she tactfully took a step back and let them pass. They brushed past each other. The woman nodded slightly at Chu Luiwei to express her apology. Chu Luiwei suddenly shouted, "Please wait a moment." The woman had already turned around and walked forward, but when she heard this, she turned back to look at her. "Young master, is there anything else?" Chu Luiwei smiled and cupped her hands. "I have something to ask you guys." Although her current face wasn't considered devilish, it could still be considered delicate and pretty. Coupled with that pair of clear eyes, it was easy for people to have a good impression of her. With such a faint smile, her eyes were slightly curved and bright, and it seemed to automatically attract people's attention. For some reason, the woman's face heated up slightly. "Please speak, young master," Chu Luiwei asked with a smile. "Does Lingxiao College recruit students who are at least rank 9 warriors?" As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Luiwei saw the expressions of the people opposite him become strange. They looked at her as if they were looking at something strange. "Where did you come from? You don't even know this?" The young man who had scolded them at the beginning couldn't help but open his mouth. He originally wanted to say a few more words, but the woman next to him glared at him. "Strictly speaking, that's not the case," the woman explained in a warm voice. "Generally speaking, only cultivators who reach the 9th rank before the age of 25 are qualified to enter Lingxiao College. However, if one's talent was especially outstanding, it was not impossible to make an exception. The final result would depend on the teachers and elders of the academy." Chu Luiwei was silent for a moment. "Mystic Master and Celestial Physician also have the same requirements?" The woman couldn't help but laugh. "Of course not. These two require one to reach the 8th rank before the age of 25. Chu Luiwei heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Mississippi," the woman smiled and nodded. She didn't take the initiative to mention her name, nor did she ask Chu Luiwei. Soon, she left with the 2 young men beside her. In Fang Province, countless people tried to enter Lingxiao College every day, but not many could do it. It would be too tiring and unnecessary if they had to tell each other their identities when they saw each other. Chu Luiwei didn't mind too much. After seeing them leave, he pondered for a moment and also walked in. This time, his dantian was calm. Almost as soon as Chu Luiwei entered the city, in a remote courtyard somewhere in the city, an old man with white hair bounced up from his bed with a bang. He looked around in panic as if he was afraid of something. Then, he hurriedly rushed outside. At this moment, there was a long line outside the courtyard. Most of the people standing there were young men and women. Their faces were filled with unconcealable excitement and anticipation. From time to time, they would look at the white-robed old man sitting on a chair at the front. There was a table in front of him, and there were 3 booklets on the table. In front of each booklet, there were crystals of different colors. At this moment, a young man had placed his hand on the white crystal in the middle and was concentrating on infusing his force into it. His face was flushed red. It was obvious that he was using all his strength. The people behind him didn't make a sound. It was obvious that they were also nervous. They were nervous because the test at this moment was Lingxiao College's exam. As for the old man sitting behind him, he was one of the teachers of the Spirit Firmament Academy in charge of Fangzhou City, Elder Wenxi. It was quiet all around. Elder Wenxi half closed his eyes and looked like he was about to fall asleep at any time. After a moment, a line of words appeared on the white crystal. 23 years old, peak of the 8th rank. Elder Wenxi glanced at it and closed his eyes again. Eliminated. The young man's face turned from red to pale. However, at this moment, Elder Wenxi suddenly opened his eyes again. He suddenly stood up. He looked in the direction of the city gate in horror. At the same time, another old man rushed out of the courtyard. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the expression on each other's face. Elder Wenxi's eyes twitched fiercely and said in a trembling voice, That scourge is here again? Digression. Cervical vertebra hurts, I can't straighten my neck. Rest for a while, continue at 6 o'clock. Chapter 1106. Elder Hua Feng hurriedly said, That, I'll find a place to hide first. I'll leave this place to you. After saying that, he turned around and was about to run away. Stop right there. Elder Wensi pulled him back and gritted his teeth. If you leave just like that, what should I do? Who told you to be on duty today? Elder Hua Feng retorted straightforwardly and looked at the sky. Look, there's still an hour before the shift change. Of course, I have to leave it to you. Let's not talk about it for now, I'm leaving first. After saying that, Elder Hua Feng quickly broke free from Elder Wensi's hands and found a direction to escape. Elder Wensi gritted his teeth in anger. He moved his feet and chased after him, shouting, "You old fart! Why are you so afraid of her? F***CK. If you're not afraid, why are you chasing me?" Elder Hua Feng retorted. Elder Wensi was speechless and felt a dull pain in his chest. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. That's not right. That scourge hasn't come back for a few years. Why would she suddenly appear at this time? Elder Hua Feng was also stunned. Then he raised his head and looked around. It really doesn't seem right. It's been so long, why hasn't she found us yet? According to the previous rules, she should have appeared by now. The two of them looked at each other and exchanged a hidden look. Could it be that I'm wrong? It's not her? Elder Wensi frowned and said, "Impossible." Elder Hua Feng immediately denied it. It must be her. It's definitely her. In this world, only the arrival of that person could startle him awake from his dreams. It couldn't be helped. After years of training, it had become instinct. Many cultivators who were still waiting in line for the test looked at what the two of them were talking about from afar. They were all confused. What's going on? Who are these two elders talking about? Both of them were elders of the Spirit Firmament Academy. In the Fang province, who else could cause them to have such a reaction? No one dared to ask any questions and could only wait quietly. Being stared at by these people with strange gazes, Elder Wensi and Elder Hua Feng finally realized that they had lost their composure just now. Elder Wensi coughed forcefully and gave Elder Hua Feng a meaningful look before lowering his voice. "What are you doing? And in front of so many children, how embarrassing!" Elder Hua Feng looked conflicted. "What's wrong with losing face? Losing your life is the scary part." Elder Wensi was speechless. He let out a long sigh and finally regained a bit of his rationality. "If she really comes back, what's the use of hiding? Let's just stay here. What can she do to us?" Elder Hua Feng looked at him suspiciously and resentfully. Elder Wensi rubbed his nose guiltily. "Give me some face. If you run away now, won't you have to come back in an hour to take your turn? There's no point in hiding. That scourge is more familiar with Fang province than we are. Where could he hide? Why don't we just wait and do what we need to do?" Elder Hua Feng's heart was filled with anxiety. After his persuasion, he finally wavered a little. "You're not allowed to run away when she comes." I know. For safety's sake, the two of them discussed moving together to avoid being alone. Thus, the two of them sat behind the table. "Ahem, continue." Elder Wensi mustered up his courage and shouted. However, he did not dare to shout too loudly. He was afraid of attracting trouble. Although the young boys and girls were at a loss, when they heard this, they still obediently went forward and took the test one by one. However, the two elders in charge of the test were obviously a little absent-minded. From time to time, they would look around as if they were looking for someone or waiting for someone. However, the expression on their faces was not one of joy or anticipation. Time passed bit by bit. The two of them gradually relaxed. Perhaps she's really fine? Otherwise, it would be strange if she didn't show up for so long. Elder Wensi was comforted. Perhaps she went to find someone else? Strange, what day is it today? There are actually two elders overseeing the test together? Seeing the long line, Luo Shirshir's beautiful eyes widened slightly as a trace of surprise flashed across her face. Perhaps they knew that we were coming today? Zhuosheng chuckled. The news of our arrival has always been very confidential. Besides, what kind of figures are the two elders? We are just juniors. Why would they bother to make such a big fuss? Luo Shirshir shook her head and retorted. Perhaps the two elders have other arrangements, But that's not something we can ask. Let's go over as soon as possible, Luo Yanming said with a smile. As they spoke, they stepped forward and lined up at the end of the line. Chu Luiwei saw them from afar, but she did not follow them. From where she was, she could not see the two elders inside, but from the long line and the whispers of the people around her, she could guess that that should be the place where Lingxiao College's test was taking place. That should be the only place to get a pass. However, Chu Luiwei was not in a hurry to go over. After confirming the location, she began to leisurely stroll around the city. Every street here was very spacious and flat, and it was very lively. Walking on the streets, she could clearly feel that the auras of these people were very powerful. Although she could not tell what level they were at, she could tell a thing or two from the admission criteria of Lingxiao College. A level 9 martial artist before the age of 25 was definitely considered a top genius. But here, they were only at the entry level. Chu Luiwei deeply understood what Dugu Mabao had said earlier. Here, the current her was indeed too weak. In fact, Chu Luiwei's breakthrough speed was already very fast. After all, she had been reborn as a good-for-nothing with a damaged Yuan meridian in her teens. Her real cultivation time had only been these 2 years. If not for those opportunities and treasures, it would have been very difficult for her to reach her current level. However, in a world where the strong were respected, only the results were important. No one cared about the process. Chu Luiwei walked casually on the streets. Fang State City was very big and prosperous. Because Lingxiao College was behind it, most of the people who came here were very well behaved. Other than that, there were many vendors who bought and sold everything. Pills, yuan tools, medicinal herbs, shen formations, almost everything related to cultivation had an extremely standardized and huge market here. Chu Luiwei wanted to pick some things, but she realized that there was nothing that caught her eye. Thus, after walking for a while, Chu Luiwei returned to the place where Luo Shishir and the others had gone before. At this moment, the long line was much shorter. It was almost Luo Shishir's turn. Chu Luiwei walked over and stood at the end of the line with a few people in between. Elder Huafeng suddenly shivered and looked in Chu Luiwei's direction vigilantly. Chapter 1107. Chu Luiwei seemed to have sensed something and looked up. When she realized that it was an old man sitting there looking at her, Chu Luiwei was stunned for a moment before smiling slightly. Her current appearance was very delicate and tall. With this smile, she exuded the temperament of a pure and harmless noble young master. In addition, her respectful and polite expression made her even more likable. Seeing that it was not the face in his memory, Elder Huafeng subconsciously heaved a sigh of relief. But for some reason, he felt that this young man looked somewhat familiar. Elder Wensi, who was beside him, also followed his line of sight, but the figure in front of them blocked their view, so neither of them could see too clearly. Chu Luiwei had already lowered her eyes. At this moment, it was Zhuosheng's turn to take the test. Greetings, elders. Junior Zhuosheng would like to take the warrior test. Elder Wensi retracted his gaze and looked at the young man in front of him. His eyes lit up and he raised his chin. Just follow the instructions. Zhuosheng tried his best to hide his nervousness and anticipation as he placed his hand on the white crystal in front of him. A moment later, a line of words slowly appeared. 23 years old, early stage of the 9th stage. The surrounding crowd fell silent for a moment. This had reached the admission standards of Lingxiao College. Moreover, he could already be considered one of the more outstanding ones. One had to know that the earlier one broke through to the 9th stage, the more resources they would receive after entering the academy. The better the treatment. Sure enough, Elder Wensi revealed a smile on his face. Not bad. As he said that, he flipped his palm and took out a black jade token. This jade token was pitch black and engraved with golden patterns. That was the symbol of Lingxiao College. It was also their totem. Inject a strand of your force into it and activate the pass. You will officially become a student of the academy. Elder Wensi said with a smile. Every day in Fangzhou, there were many people who tried to enter the Spirit Firmament Academy, but those who succeeded were few and far between. Sometimes, there might not even be one in a month. He thought that he wouldn't gain anything today, but he didn't expect that he would become one when it was almost over. And there might be more than one. The two people who traveled with Zhuosheng seemed to be very good. Zhuosheng carefully injected a strand of his force. On the black jade token, the Academy's totem suddenly flashed. Then the words, Zhuosheng, appeared below. Good. From today onwards, you are a student of the Academy. Elder Wensi laughed out loud. As soon as he said that, everyone around him. Zhuosheng looked at the black jade token in his hand and was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Although he had already expected this result before he came, he still couldn't hide his excitement when it really came true. Go and wait at the side first. When it's over, come back with this old man. Elder Wensi said with a smile. This time, it was Luo. Greetings to the two elders. Junior Luo Yenming wants to take the Mystic Master test. Elder Huafeng suddenly interjected. Luo Yenming smiled. That's why I said you guys look a little similar. That kid is very outstanding. I'm sure the few of you should be the same, right? Quick, test it. Luo Yenming replied and placed her hand on the black crystal beside her. Soon, a line of words slowly appeared on it. 23 years old, level 9 Xian Master. Cries of surprise could be heard from the crowd. He was only 23 years old, but he was already a level 9 Xian Master? He was truly an extremely outstanding genius. This old man's judgment can't be wrong. Elder Huafeng smiled proudly at Elder Wensi. This kid is the same as his brother. He has outstanding talent in this area. The reason why he was happy was because he was a Xian Master and Elder Wensi was a martial artist. They were both 23 years old, but a level 9 Xian Master was stronger than a stage 9 martial artist. Elder Wensi didn't argue with him about this and chuckled. In any case, they all came in during his shift, so this result would be credited to him. And that little girl, you come. Facing Luo Shishir, Elder Wensi and Elder Huafeng's attitude was much more amiable. Luo Shishir stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Greetings to the two elders. Junior Luo Shishir wants to test as a martial artist. Elder Wensi chuckled. Feel free to test it. Luo Shishir pursed her lips and smiled as she placed her hand on the white crystal. A moment later, words appeared. 20 years old, stage 9 martial artist. The crowd instantly quieted down. The expressions of the two elders also changed slightly. Surprise appeared in their eyes. A 20-year-old stage 9 martial artist. In the academy, he could be considered to be one of the top students. Elder Wensi was very happy. Today was simply too surprising. Other people might not be able to wait for a month for a qualified one, but today, 3 of them came at once. He even felt that his heart, which had been hurt by suspecting the appearance of that scourge, had been comforted. The Luo family is indeed a gathering of geniuses. The younger generation is actually so outstanding. Luo Shishir blushed slightly. Elders, you flatter me. She took her black jade token and felt the slightly cold touch. Only then did she feel a little more at ease. According to your talent, you could have come a long time ago. Why did you take so long? Elder Wensi asked curiously. Luo Shishir said with some embarrassment. Actually, the two brothers could have come a long time ago, but they waited for me, so she insisted on waiting until she broke through to become a stage 9 martial artist. After all, Lingxiao College was the top college in the Divine Ruins world. She wanted to perform as well as possible, so she waited until now. Elder Wensi and Elder Huafeng laughed, but they didn't ask in detail. It's a good thing that you have a good relationship. When you reach the college, let Luo Yenlin take you around. The scene was lively and joyous. When the onlookers saw this, they were all envious. After that, more than a dozen people were tested, but no one passed. However, the two elders were already very happy. Especially Elder Wensi. These 3 people were all on his side. Chu Luiwei stepped forward. She was the last one. Greetings to the two elders. Chu Luiwei bowed politely. Her words and actions were all like that of a young master from an aristocratic family. It was pleasing to the eye. This also made many people who were about to leave stop in their tracks, wanting to take a look. Only then did Elder Wenxi and Elder Huafeng carefully size up the youth in front of them. They couldn't tell his background, but this aura was indeed rare. Junior Chu Yu wants to take the Celestial Physician test. To be safe, Chu Luiyue still chose the Celestial Physician test. However, as soon as she finished speaking, the two elders opposite her were stunned, as if they had heard something stimulating. Elder Huafeng stared at her. Chu Yu? Which you? Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. She said almost subconsciously, Wu Yu. The two elders heaved a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. Chapter 1108. Looking at the two elders' relieved expressions, Chu Luiyue had a very strange feeling in her heart. Although she didn't know which Yu the other party was asking this question for, she inexplicably felt that it was her Yu. However, she didn't show it on her face and pretended not to notice anything. I wonder if this junior can take the test now? Take the test, take the test. Elder Huafeng heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly and placed her hand on the red crystal on the other side. The people beside him were discussing something in low voices. He doesn't look old. Could it be that he has already met the admission criteria? His appearance and bearing are not bad. He should be from a good background, right? Maybe he's a descendant of some family. Maybe he's just here to have fun. Chu Luiyue held her breath and focused. Soon, a line of words appeared on the red crystal. 16 years old, 8th grade celestial physician. The crowd suddenly fell silent. Elder Wenxi suddenly stood up. Elder Huafeng was stunned for a moment and didn't notice that he was almost knocked to the ground. If it was any other time, he would definitely catch Elder Wenxi and beat him up, but now he couldn't care less about this. You're only 16 years old? You're an 8th grade celestial physician? The two elders exclaimed in shock. It was no wonder that the two of them reacted like this. It was because this matter was too shocking. In the Divine Ruins world, 8th grade celestial physician was not considered rare, especially in Lingxiao College where there were many talents. Who knew how many top geniuses in the world gathered here? Those who were able to serve as elders here were naturally rare powerhouses. After being in Lingxiao College for so many years, what kind of monsters had they not seen? However, this kid in front of them still shocked them. The main reason was that 16 years old was too young. To be able to become an 8th grade celestial physician at this age, even in Lingxiao College where talents gathered, was definitely an existence that was as rare as a phoenix feather or a qilin horn. Chu Luiyue coughed. She had forgotten that she was indeed only 16 years old. I wonder, did I pass? Chu Luiyue asked. Forget it. Of course. Elder Wenxi shouted out reflexively. If this didn't count, then those that he had accepted before were even less qualified. The two elders stared at the young man in front of them, feeling both happy and vexed. What made him happy was that he had met another rare genius. Unfortunately, this genius specialized in celestial physician. One of them was a martial artist while the other was a mystic cultivator, so there was nothing they could do to teach this child. Seeing the faint smile on Chu Luiyue's face, Elder Wenxi suddenly came back to his senses and quickly took out a black jade token and handed it to her. Here, this is your pass, and also your identity item in the academy. You must take good care of it. Thank you, Elder. Chu Luiyue took it with both hands and smiled humbly and politely. Every word and action of his was flawless. She held the black jade token in her hand and injected a strand of her origin power into it. The Academy's totem lit up with a faint fluorescent light. Chu Luiyue's name appeared below, Chu Yu. She looked at the black jade token in her hand with a complicated mood. Lingxiao College seemed to be an unattainable place before, but now she had actually become a member of it. The surrounding people watched with envy. Elder Wenxi looked at the sky and chuckled at Elder Huafeng. These 4 little fellows are all on my head. Elder Huafeng pursed his lips. Lucky bastard. Elder Wenxi didn't care about his teasing. This time, he could show off when he returned to the academy. Hee, yesterday I was still envious of that old thing Liang Xia for taking in an outstanding mystic cultivator. She's very good at teleportation arrays at such a young age. I didn't expect my luck to be even better today. Chu Liyue's ears twitched slightly. That person, it should be Lin Qifei. Because she deliberately took a detour on the way, she was a step late. However, this was also good. Chu Liyue didn't tell Lin Qifei that she was coming too. As for after that, she would temporarily act as Chu Yu in the academy. The fewer people who knew about some things, the safer they would be. Elder Huafeng snorted coldly. Go ahead and be happy. Be careful of that calamity. Halfway through his sentence, Elder Huafeng realized that there were still many people watching and hurriedly kept quiet. However, these words were obviously very useful to Elder Wensi. The smug look on his face immediately disappeared, and he looked around vigilantly. If Elder Huafeng hadn't mentioned it, he would have almost forgotten about it. Cough, time's up. Huafeng, it's your turn to be on duty. I'll bring these little fellows back to the academy first. Elder Huafeng almost jumped up. You're leaving? What did you say just now? Didn't we agree to go together? If he left now, would he be able to resist that calamity alone? Elder Wensi stroked his beard. There's nothing I can do about it. Look at the kids, they're all waiting. I have to send them back as soon as possible. Hold on for a while longer. Anyway, someone will come to take over in a few hours. Elder Huafeng gritted his teeth in anger. What a nice way to put it. Normally, it wouldn't be a problem for him to guard this place alone for 10 days to half a month, but how could it be the same now? As soon as he thought of that scourge waiting for an opportunity in some corner, he felt unwell. You go back and call someone over immediately. Elder Huafeng thought about it and made a concession. Elder Wensi immediately agreed. Chu Liyue's gaze swept across the two elders, and a trace of doubt appeared in his heart. Strange, why did it feel like they were afraid of something? This was Feng Zhou. If they walked forward and crossed the huge silver barrier, they would arrive at Lingxiao College. It was not an exaggeration to say that this was their territory. What exactly was it that made them so vigilant and worried? Luo Shishir and the others also vaguely sensed something, but they were not as sharp as Chu Liyue. They only thought that the two elders had other arrangements, so they did not pay much attention to it. On the other hand, Chu Liyue made them more interested. From time to time, they would look in Chu Liyue's direction. Chu Liyue nodded slightly at the few of them and took the initiative to greet them. I'm Chu Yu. Please guide me in the future. This gentle and polite attitude made Luo Shishir and the others lower their guard against him and have a good impression of him. I couldn't tell that you had some ability. Zhuosheng crossed his arms, and the expression on his face was a little awkward. In detail, the other party's talent was obviously much better than his, and when he entered the city gate earlier he still treated him with that kind of attitude. It was rare for Zhuosheng to feel a little embarrassed. However, a man's pride and competitiveness did not allow him to lower his head and apologize, so he could only speak awkwardly. Chu Liyue did not seem to care much and chuckled. Thank you for the compliment. Chapter 1109. Zhuosheng's previous attitude couldn't be considered polite, but he didn't have any bad intentions. To be able to take the initiative to admit that she was outstanding, she was actually stronger than many people. Because there were actually many people who couldn't even admit that others were outstanding. But at the same time, Chu Liyue also clearly understood that the strong were respected. In this place, this was indeed the only law. Even Lingxiao College was no exception. Seeing Chu Liyue smiling so happily, as if he didn't take the previous small conflict to heart, the last bit of discomfort in Zhuosheng's heart completely dissipated. He laughed, straightforward. You're the youngest among us, so call me big brother and let me hear you. Slap. Elder Wensi mercilessly slapped the back of Zhuosheng's head. You all entered the academy on the same day, so you are of the same generation. Zhuosheng let out an ouch. Luo Shishir and the others laughed. All of you follow me. Elder Wensi waved his hand and left with the others. Elder Huafeng shouted sadly from behind. Don't forget what you promised just now. Elder Wensi sped up his leaving speed silently. The group soon arrived in front of the huge barrier. Looking at the barrier that was flickering with a faint light, Luo Shishir and the others couldn't hide their excitement. Elder Wensi said, "Later, as long as you hold the black jade token in your hand and place it on the barrier, you can open it and enter smoothly." As he spoke, Elder Wensi pointed at Luo Yanming, who looked the most stable among them. "Luo Yanming, you go first." "Yes." Luo Yanming took a deep breath and walked forward. Standing close to it, he could clearly feel the indescribable pressure. It made people involuntarily feel awe. His expression became much more serious. He immediately raised his hand and carefully placed the black jade token on the barrier. Buzz. A slight sound came from the barrier, and at the same time, the black jade token lit up. In the next moment, the barrier fluctuated and slowly split open an entrance from the middle. Luo Yanming's eyes lit up, and he immediately jumped in. The moment his figure disappeared, the enchantment immediately closed. The defensive power of the Academy's barrier is extremely strong and can only be opened with a pass. When you use the pass to enter the Academy, correspondingly, there will be a record of your passage on the barrier. Elder Wensi explained. "Record?" Luo Shishir asked curiously. "Yes." After the enchantment recorded all this information, it would automatically collect and organize it. However, under normal circumstances, the only one who can see these is the president. This was actually a manifestation of a strict guard. Luo Shishir and Zhuoxing nodded thoughtfully, their faces full of amazement. "I see." Lingxiao College was indeed worthy of its reputation. However, Chu Luiyue was slightly taken aback when he heard this. If that was the case, everyone who entered or left Lingxiao College would leave traces behind. Then, what about Dugamabao? He had said that he would wait for her in the academy. He should be inside now, right? He had no idea how he got in. However, judging from the current situation, everything was still very calm. Next, Zhuoxing. Zhuoxing looked excited and quickly went forward. He followed Luo Yanming's previous method and placed the black jade token on it. The same scene happened again. He quickly flashed into the barrier. Elder Wensi smiled and waved at Luo Shishir. Luo Shishir also entered very smoothly. Finally, it was Chu Luiyue's turn. "Come, kid, it's your turn." Elder Wensi shouted. Like the previous few people, Chu Luiyue walked forward. At this moment, she was only one step away from the barrier. She took out the black jade token. However, at this moment, an image suddenly flashed through her mind. In the image, there seemed to be a person standing in front of the barrier. That person's figure was very blurry and could not be seen clearly. However, this did not affect Chu Luiyue from seeing the fair and beautiful hands. Her fingertips danced, and several streams of light flew out and intertwined in midair. Soon, a small Xian formation was formed. Although the Xian formation was not big, it was very complicated. Countless lines of starlight intertwined, and it was almost dazzling. Then, that person pushed the small Xian formation forward. The Xian formation lightly attached to the barrier. Buzz. A slight sound came from the barrier. Then, several lines lit up on it. That was the Xian formation buried in the barrier. At this moment, it was directly summoned. The two Xian formations, one big and one small, were attached to each other, and seemed to have some kind of mysterious connection. Then, a hand lightly tapped on the small Xian formation. The Xian formation shattered. At the same time, the big Xian formation also shattered. Above the enchantment, a hole was silently broken in an instant. When the hole was big enough to allow a person to pass through, that blurry figure instantly flashed into it. The speed was so fast that Chu Luiyue could not see it clearly. However, after the figure disappeared, she could clearly see that the hole in the barrier had quietly returned to its original state. It was exactly the same as before. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that the barrier could be opened so easily. Just as Chu Luiyue was exclaiming in her heart, a furious reprimand suddenly sounded in her mind. "You secretly opened the barrier again? Go back and reflect on your mistakes." Then the scene disappeared. Chu Luiyue's expression became a little strange. "What's wrong?" Elder Wensi noticed her abnormality and could not help but ask. "Nothing." Chu Liwei came back to her senses, shook her head, and took out the black jade token. Then, she paused slightly and looked at Elder Wenxi beside her and asked, "Elder Wenxi, Elder Huafeng, is he usually in charge of guarding the barrier?" Elder Wenxi was stunned for a moment and looked at her strangely. "Why did you think of asking this?" Chu Liwei smiled slightly. "This barrier has the power of a Xian formation. I heard that Elder Huafeng is a Xian master, so, the barrier of the academy is usually guarded by several elders. Each person is in charge of a different area. Huafeng did do this in the past, but later on he refused to do it." Elder Wenxi shrugged with a subtle expression on his face. He said it was too tiring. Chu Liwei, guarding the barrier doesn't seem to be tiring for a Xian master powerhouse. Chu Liwei recalled the irritable shout that flashed through her mind just now. Looks like it's Elder Huafeng. I just don't know who he's shouting at. To be able to open the barrier without using the black jade token and only using the Xian formation that he built, it seems that he really has some ability. Chu Liwei put away her thoughts and recalled that when she entered the city previously, there were fluctuations in her dantian, and her eyes flashed. She raised 120% of her spirit, suppressed the water droplets in her dantian, drew out a stream of force, and poured it into the black jade token. Buzz. The barrier opened. Digression, Elder Huafeng. It's too difficult for me. Chapter 11:10. This time, the water droplet didn't react at all. Chu Liwei heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Elder Wenxi, on the other hand, looked at her with a surprised expression. "It seems that your bloodline talent is very outstanding. Generally speaking, the stronger the bloodline talent, the greater the potential of a genius. Correspondingly, when the barrier sensed this, it would also open entrances of different sizes. Among the few people just now, Zhuosheng was the youngest, and Luo Shishir was the oldest. But compared to the youth in front of her, they were still far behind." Chu Liue's eyelids twitched. She didn't expect that there would be such a trick in this barrier. But she didn't show it on her face. She only smiled and said, "Thank you for your praise, Elder. This is not a compliment." Elder Wenxi shook his head. "Such talent almost..." Thinking of something, he suddenly stopped and shook his head with a smile. His eyes were filled with envy and regret. "What a pity! You are a celestial physician who cultivates. If you are a martial artist, this old man will definitely think of a way to take you in as a disciple." Chu Liue's eyes flashed slightly, but she didn't say anything. "Let's go. Let's go in too." Lest they wait anxiously inside. Elder Wenxi laughed and followed Chu Liwei into the barrier. After a short flash of white light, Chu Liwei stood still and looked around. Although she was already mentally prepared, when she saw everything in front of her, Chu Liwei was still stunned on the spot. The blue sky was clear and there were no clouds for thousands of miles. On the undulating mountain peaks, green clouds accumulated, and the branches and leaves were lush. A tall and magnificent iron-black bell tower stood in the middle and was the most conspicuous. At a glance, it seemed as if it was about to connect the heavens and the earth. Under the iron-black bell tower, there was a huge and wide white square. Black and white complemented each other. Under the illumination of the sun, it reflected a trace of holy light. Other than that, with the bell tower and the square as the center, on the surrounding mountains, one could vaguely see many exquisitely built buildings. Most of them were independent of each other. The range was so wide that one couldn't see the edge at a glance. The rich and pure origin power of heaven and earth made one feel relaxed and happy. Chu Liwei took a deep breath and couldn't help but be secretly shocked. Although the density of the force here was slightly lower than that of the Yuntian Tower, it was superior in terms of purity. To be able to cultivate here, one's cultivation speed would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. "This is Lingxiao College," Luo Shishir muttered in a low voice. Her beautiful eyes were filled with yearning and shock. Although the other two were trying their best to restrain themselves, it was obvious that they couldn't hide their excitement. Seeing is believing. Lingxiao College was indeed worthy of its reputation. Why did he bring so many children back this time? A voice suddenly came from afar. The few of them looked up and saw a gray-robed old man suddenly flying towards them. Before they could see how he moved, he was already in front of them. A moment ago, they were still a few mountains away, but in the blink of an eye, they were here. Teleport. This was something that only deities who had completely stepped into the deity realm could accomplish. Luo Shirshir and the others became even more respectful. Chu Liyue's heart also trembled slightly. Ha! Elder when she laughed out loud, full of pride. Xiaoji, these 4 children are all very outstanding. You can't be envious. When Elder Xiaoji heard this, he carefully sized up the few of them with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Elder Wenxi's standards were very high. To be able to make him say such words proved that these people were really not bad. His gaze swept across Luo Shirshir and the others one by one. Early stage level 9. Early stage level 9. Level 9 Mystic. As he looked, he muttered softly, revealing a satisfied expression. Not bad, not bad. They're all good seedlings. He was still praising them, but he didn't know that the people opposite him were also shocked by this. This Elder Xiaoji could actually see through their true cultivation realm at a glance. They had clearly concealed their auras. Ha! Don't worry, in the academy, the origin devices that conceal one's aura will lose their effect. All the students' true cultivation realms will be revealed. Moreover, Xiaoji's eyesight is a little sharp, so it's normal for him to be able to see through your standards. Elder Wenxi seemed to have seen through their uneasiness and explained with a smile. Hearing this, Luo Shirshir and the others were relieved. At the same time, they felt even more reverence for the academy. People in the entire Divine Ruins world would not casually reveal their strength when they went out. Therefore, many origin devices were specially used to conceal one's aura. However, they did not expect that these items would be useless in the academy. On one hand, this proved the strength of the academy. On the other hand, this also showed that everyone in the academy was very law-abiding and did not dare to cause trouble casually. Elder Xiaoji's gaze finally landed on Chu Liyue. The smile on his face froze slightly, and his gaze deepened. The origin device that concealed this youth's aura was actually not suppressed and broken? What's your strength? Elder Xiaoji asked. The moment he spoke, the others looked over. Only then did Elder Wenxi realize that something was wrong with Chu Liyue. Hey, Chu Yu, I couldn't tell that you actually had such a powerful origin device on you? Elder Xiaoji's eyebrows suddenly trembled. What did you say his name was? Elder Wenxi comforted him. Chu Yu, you as in Wu. Can't you see that this is a boy? What are you nervous about? Elder Xiaoji rolled his eyes at him. You said it as if you weren't nervous. Of course, he knew that the person in front of him was a youth. He was just casually asking. Chu Liyue was stunned for a moment, then his lips curved into a smile, and his eyes curved. Student Chu Yu, an 8th grade celestial physician. Xiaoji's pupils suddenly constricted. Don't laugh. Digression, 6 p.m. Chapter 11:11. Chu Liyue's eyes flashed, and the smile on her face disappeared. She blinked her eyes with a pure and innocent expression, as if she did not understand what had happened. This gaze made Elder Xiaoji feel a little guilty. Ahem. No, nothing. I just feel that your smile seems a little familiar. I'm not used to it for a moment. Elder Wenxi was about to say that he was making a fuss over nothing, but from the corner of his eye, he saw Chu Liyue retracting the corners of her eyes. That pair of clear black and white eyes were clear and clean. Upon closer inspection, it was like a deep spring, clear but mysterious. At a glance, she really did look somewhat similar to that scourge. No wonder Xiaoji had such a big reaction. Elder Wenxi, did I do something wrong? Chu Liyue turned her gaze slightly and looked at Elder Wenxi as if she was asking for help. Being stared at by her eyes, Elder Wenxi's heart inexplicably trembled. It's nothing. Didn't he just say that he felt that you and a person is very similar to a person? Don't take it to heart. Elder Wenxi hurriedly explained. He felt that he and Elder Xiaoji were making a mountain out of a molehill. This child looked fresh and clean. Most importantly, he was only a 16-year-old boy. How could he be related to that person? It wasn't good for the child to be frightened on his first day at the academy. Thinking of this, Elder Wensi said again, "That's right. Xiaoji, don't underestimate this child. He's only 16 years old now." These words indeed shocked Elder Xiaoji, and he snapped out of his daze. Really? A 16-year-old 8th grade celestial physician was very rare in the academy. How can this be fake? Those old things took advantage of us for nothing. It was not easy to meet such a top-notch person, and he was actually a celestial physician. Fortunately, there was still Luo Shishir and the others, so it was not a waste. He finally felt some psychological comfort. Xiaoji was also a martial artist. Hearing this, he nodded seriously and curled his lips. Forget it. They don't have many students to begin with. If you send this child over, they'll owe you a big favor. Hee, that's true. Elder Wensi was in a good mood again. He looked back at them and said, "Today is your first day at the academy. Although we've already tested your talent and strength, you're free to move about for the first few days. Feel free to take a look around the academy and learn from the teachers. At the beginning of every month, all the teachers will gather together to recruit students. At that time, you can decide which teacher you want to join. Don't worry, because the academy recruits students at random, there are often new students, so everyone is very polite to the newcomers. As long as you humbly ask for guidance and are courteous, you basically won't cause any trouble in the academy." Of course, during this process, you will inevitably encounter some people who want to spar with you. If you are willing to agree, then agree. If you are unwilling, you can also refuse. There is no need to force yourself. Elder Wensi said patiently. Then, his expression turned serious. In the academy, the most important thing is to raise your own cultivation. As long as you are strong enough, everything else is easy. As for your identity, it's not important. Do you understand? Luo Shishir and the others nodded seriously. Chu Luiwei had a better impression of Lingxiao College in his heart. Although this place also respected the strong, it was obvious that it tried to maintain equality between the students. Just this point alone was already very rare. The students of Lingxiao College came from all over the world. Among them, there were children of aristocratic families and ordinary people of ordinary birth. In the outside world, their identities were different. But here, they only had the identity of a student of Lingxiao College. This was actually more beneficial for cultivation. The academy is relatively large. You're new here, so it's easy to get lost. However, just remember one thing. If you lose your way, go to the Donghuang Bell Tower in the middle and you'll be able to return safely. Of course, just go to the Qingming Square below the Donghuang Bell Tower. You don't have to go forward, and you don't have to go in. Usually, only the dean and the elders can enter there with a card. If others enter without permission, they will be in danger if they're not careful. If something happens, no one will be able to save you in time, understand? When he said the last sentence, Elder Wensi's words carried a hint of warning. The heavy pressure caused Luo Shishir and the others to unconsciously feel a chill on their backs. They hurriedly said, "Students understand." Chu Luiwei glanced at the Donghuang Bell Tower. Even under the bright sunlight, the iron-black color still revealed a sense of coldness. As for the Qingming Square below, if she didn't feel wrongly, there seemed to be a powerful Xian formation on it. She retracted her gaze and suppressed her thoughts. Apart from that, the academy is divided into 4 parts: north, south, east, and west. The east is the celestial physician, the south is the Xian master, and the west is the martial artist. As Elder Wensi spoke, he raised his finger and showed it to them. Although the division of the regions is clear, because there are many dual or even triple cultivators in the academy, there are more interactions between each other. You can go to whichever region you're best at. If you want to go to other places to take a look, it's fine. As expected of the top academy in the Divine Ruins world. If it was anywhere else, dual cultivation geniuses were already very rare, but here, even triple cultivation was not rare. Elder Wensi, Where is the north? Zhuo Sheng asked straightforwardly. Haha. That's a good place. Elder Wensi laughed loudly. That's the territory of the weapon refiners. Weapon refiners? Luo Shishir and the others all revealed shocked expressions. That's right. Although the outside world has always said that the skills of the weapon refiners have been lost on the continent, there are still a few old fellows in our academy. It's just that because we have too few disciples, we've always kept a low profile. It was impossible not to keep a low profile. With just that few people, there was already an endless stream of people begging for help. If this was any more ostentatious, the academy's threshold would probably be broken by people. There was no other way. There were not many people who knew about the top refining techniques that were still circulating in the world. Most of the divine weapons that were circulating on the market were forged by the weapon refiners thousands of years ago, or left behind by the experts of the past. Now, the weapon refiners who truly had the strength to forge powerful divine weapons were simply too precious. It was also because of this that even though they had few people, they still occupied a quarter of the entire academy's territory. You don't have to go there if you have nothing to do. The weapon refiners are busy forging divine weapons all day long. From time to time, there will be Tianlei striking down. It won't be good if you're accidentally implicated. Elder Wensi said resentfully as he thought of something. Chapter 11-12. The few of them agreed obediently. All right, I've roughly told you about the situation in the academy. You'll have to go and take a look yourself to truly understand the rest. This old man won't waste any more time here. Elder Wensi clapped his hands. Xiao Yi, help me send these children over first. I have something to do. Elder Xiao Yi, who was suddenly pulled over to be a laborer, was confused. What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Elder Wensi coughed. I'll go and urge them to let the next person on duty go to Fangzhou earlier. Didn't you just come back? Huafeng should be watching over there right now. Why are you in such a hurry? Elder Xiao Yi found it even more strange. Generally speaking, every elder would be in charge of guarding outside for a day. Every time it was a certain time, the elder in charge of taking over would go a little earlier. However, it was rare for the previous one to call for the next one to go up as soon as he returned. Elder Wensi wanted to say something but hesitated. He couldn't say that they felt that the scourge had returned. If he said that, no one would go. It was better to hide it as long as possible. It's nothing. You know Huafeng's old habit. He likes to drink when he has nothing to do. I'm afraid that he'll secretly drink again when he's alone. It's fine if he gets drunk, but it won't be good if he delays other things. Only then did Elder Xiao nod. That's true. I've told him about this habit so many times, but he hasn't changed. Sigh, isn't it all because he was forced to quit drinking in the past? Now that he has the opportunity, he can finally drink to his heart's content. Elder Wensi's voice stopped abruptly. Xiao Yi's expression also changed slightly. Speaking of Huafeng quitting drinking, it was all thanks to a certain someone. Even the dean couldn't get him to quit, but a certain someone did it. However, the method was a little cruel, the process was a little bumpy, and Huafeng was a little miserable. As a result, he became even worse now that he was liberated. The two of them looked at each other. Xiao Yi seemed to have thought of something and couldn't bear it. Forget it, let him drink. I'll help you take care of these children. Go find someone to help him. Elder Wensi turned around and quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. His strength was obviously not weaker than Elder Xiao Yi. Come, let's go to the warriors first. Elder Xiao Yi waved his hand. Elder Xiao Yi took the lead while Luo Shishir and the others followed closely behind. Chu Luiwei quietly followed at the end of the team. As she listened to Elder Xiao Yi talk about the academy with the others from time to time, she kept looking around her. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt as if she had been here before. Coupled with the scene that had appeared in her mind earlier, she was even more certain of her guess. Unfortunately, most of her memories were incomplete. Apart from that one frame, she couldn't remember anything else. Therefore, he could only suppress his thoughts for the time being. After flying in for a while, it became much livelier. Students could be seen cultivating on almost every mountaintop. From time to time, they could also see some teachers in class. In short, it was a scene of prosperity and liveliness. Chu Luiyue felt inexplicably happy. If he could cultivate here, it would indeed be a very good thing. Then why did Rong Xiu keep hiding it from me? Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. The warrior's territory is up ahead. Elder Qiao Yi suddenly shouted. As if they had sensed the movement in the sky, many people below raised their heads and looked over. Elder Qiao Yi is here. Could it be that the ones following behind him are today's new students? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are actually 4 of them? I think there's a junior sister. Some people could not hide their excitement. One had to know that the proportion of female cultivators was not high on their side. Therefore, every time a junior sister entered the academy, they were very happy. Smack. A tall figure walked out from the crowd. All of you, put away your thoughts and watch your eyes. When this was said, many people shrunk their heads. It was because the person who spoke was one of the best in the academy, Luo Yanlin. Brother Lin, do you know them? The young man who was beaten up asked boldly with a grimace. Luo Yanlin snorted, but did not pay much attention to him. He flew straight up. He went straight for those people. After a while, he stood in front of Elder Qiao Yi and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Elder Qiao Yi. Luo Yanlin, why are you here today? When Elder Qiao saw him, he also laughed out loud. I just finished studying a Xian formation and came to spar with them. As Luo Yanlin spoke, his gaze landed on Luo Shishir and the others. His handsome face immediately became gentler. Also, I'm here to pick up my younger siblings. Oh? When Elder Qiao Yi heard that, he turned around to take a look. It was only then that he realized something. 4th brother. Luo Shishir and the others could not hide their excitement and shouted in unison. Zhuosheng was cousins with them. They grew up together and had a good relationship. Therefore, she also called him 4th brother. Luo Yanlin's smile deepened. Not bad. You guys came faster than I expected. It seems that Shishir has broken through in advance. How are father and mother? Luo Shishir blushed slightly. They're doing well. They just miss 4th brother. The people who were watching from below sighed. So she was really Luo Yanlin's younger sister. And she was his biological sister. Then there was no hope for them. There were not many people in the academy who were Luo Yanlin's match. If they wanted his sister, they must be tired of living. Sigh. Why are there 3 junior brothers here? Someone sighed. When Elder Qiao Yi heard this, he glanced down and snorted. You guys are dreaming. Among these 4 little fellows, only Luo Shishir and Zhuosheng are Xian masters. Everyone looked at Luo Yanming and Chu Luiyue in surprise. The remaining 2 aren't martial artists? Luo Yanlin, bring the 2 of them down and familiarize yourself with them. I still have to send them off. Elder Qiao Yi instructed. Luo Yanlin nodded and waved at the 2 of them. Shishir, Ashing, come with me. The 2 of them obediently walked to his side. After not seeing each other for a long time, they naturally missed each other. Let's go to the Xian masters next. Elder Qiao Yi said. Luo Yanlin smiled at Luo Yanming. You go first. I'll come later. On my account, those people won't bully you. Luo Yanming nodded with a smile. At this moment, Luo Shishir suddenly spoke. Chu Yu, you can do it too. Luo Yanlin glanced at his sister and followed her line of sight. It was a handsome and tall youth. His eyes were clear, and his temperament was clean. He narrowed his eyes. Chu Yu? Unexpectedly, Zhuosheng also raised her fist. Chu Yu, I heard that those celestial physicians are very proud. Don't be a coward. Chu Luiyue blinked, chuckled, and nodded. Elder Qiao Yi suddenly turned to look at her. Chu Luiyue almost instinctively stopped her back and retracted her smile by 30%. Elder Qiao Yi nodded in satisfaction. She's obedient. He was relieved. Chapter 11-13. Chu Luiyue quickly left with Elder Qiao Yi and Luo Yanming. Who's he? Luo Yanlin looked at the two people beside him and asked in a seemingly casual manner after the three figures gradually disappeared into the distance. You guys seem to be close? Actually, we're not very close. We just met in Fangzhou City. Zhuosheng chuckled and said casually. That kid is very talented. He's only 16 years old, but he's already an 8th grade celestial physician. Oh? Luo Yanlin raised his eyebrows slightly. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes, but it quickly returned to normal. Zhuosheng and the others were new here, so they might be a little shocked and curious when they encountered such a situation. However, he had been in the academy for a few years and was used to seeing top geniuses from all over the world. Although Chuyu was not bad, it was not to the extent that he was stunned. He's not bad. If he can develop well, his future will be bright. Luo Yanlin gave a fair evaluation. I think he can do it. Luo Shishir suddenly said. Luo Yanlin's eyes flickered. He saw Luo Shishir looking at the figure in the distance with a serious expression. I've seen many talented celestial physicians, but most of them are very arrogant. However, Chuyu, he was humble and polite, and knew when to advance and retreat. If they had not seen it with their own eyes during the test, they would not have believed that he was only 16 years old. Zhuosheng was 23 years old, but in front of him, he was like a child. Such a calm temperament, whether it was innate or nurtured, was very shocking. Luo Yanlin rubbed his chin. Whether he can do it or not, we'll know at the beginning of the month. Those arrogant celestial physicians were not that easy to fool. He waved at the two of them. All right, let's not bother about them for now. I'll bring you guys to familiarize yourself with the environment first. I'll check on Yanming later. Sure, you've already reached the early stage of the 9th level. Do you want to compete with me again? Luo Shishir finally looked away, her eyes shining. But ever since her 4th brother came to Lingxiao College, they had not sparred. She was a little tempted. Zhuosheng hurriedly shouted. 4th brother? What about me? Luo Yanlin smiled. Hearing this voice, the many students who were waiting below to watch started to cheer. With Luo Yanlin around, the two of them blended in easily. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but turn around to take a look when he heard the faint cheers of the students behind him. Elder Qiao seemed to have sensed something and asked, What? Do you want to stay and watch? Chu Luiwei shook his head. His thin lips pursed slightly, and the corners of his mouth raised in a very faint arc. This student was just surprised. I didn't expect the academy to be like this. Hee, then what were you thinking? Elder Qiao Yi chuckled. Blindly fighting is actually meaningless. Blindly trying to be brave is also useless. Those who are able to enter Lingxiao College are all the most outstanding geniuses in the Divine Ruins world. There's no way they wouldn't understand this principle. The most important thing is to learn from each other and improve our own cultivation. Apart from the academy, they were well aware that there were even more experts outside. Only by making himself stronger would he not waste a single minute and a single second here. Chu Luiwei sighed softly. You're right. The principal and elders of the academy must have contributed greatly to creating such an environment of open competition and mutual tolerance. When she first came here, she actually had a lot of other thoughts. But now, she suddenly had some expectations and yearnings for Lingxiao College. Those over there are all Xian Master students. Elder Qiao Yi suddenly stopped and pointed below. Chu Luiwei followed his line of sight and looked over. On the flat and wide ground halfway up the mountain, there were more than 20 students standing there. There were both males and females, but they were all quite young. All of them seemed to be full of youthful energy. Standing at the front of them was a woman in her 30s. She had a graceful figure and a gentle face. However, the faint pressure coming from her made one not dare to underestimate her. Even taking a few more glances at her seemed to be blasphemy. There was a huge and complicated Xian formation beside her. From the looks of it, she seemed to be in class. When she heard the commotion, she raised her head slightly and looked over. Elder Qiao Yi laughed. Qinyang, I've brought you a good seedling today. Miao Qinyang pursed her lips and smiled. It's clearly Wenxi's credit. Why you here? Judging from her tone, she seemed to be of the same seniority as these elders. Elder Xiao Yi snorted. I knew I couldn't hide it from you. You already knew when they passed through the barrier, right? Miao Qingyang smiled and did not deny it. She was indeed in charge of guarding part of Lingxiao College's barrier. Therefore, she was aware of some of the things that happened. She looked at Luo Yanming gently. You're Yanlin's younger brother, right? I've heard him mention you before. You're indeed not bad. Luo Yanming hurriedly said. Greetings, Elder. I'm Luo Yanming. You can just call me Qingyang. Calling me Elder makes me sound old for no reason. Miao Qingyang sighed coquettishly. Luo Yanming did not dare to do so. Miao Qingyang did not tease him. Instead, it was the other students who started shouting. Qingyang doesn't like people calling her elder. Newcomer, please remember it in the future. He called her that just now, but Qingyang didn't get angry. Is it because of Lin? That goes without saying. Lin is Qingyang's favorite disciple. Now that there's another one, why would she be angry? Luo Yanming was speechless when she saw how the crowd was cheering. She did not expect there to be such an elder in the world. Qingyang glanced at the crowd with a half-smile. Don't scare him. Have you figured out the Xian formation yet? Are you here to join in the fun? The crowd quickly retracted their gazes and continued studying the Xian formation. Miao Qingyang's beautiful eyes turned to Chu Luiwei. This child is not bad. She raised her eyebrows slightly and revealed a meaningful smile. She could not see through the young man's strength. It was obvious that the yuan instrument he had with him was very powerful. The Luo family was one of the top families in the world of God, but Luo Yanming did not have such an item. This young man, Qingyang, this is not for you. This young man is a celestial physician. Elder Xiao Yi hurriedly explained. Miao Qingyang looked regretful. That's a pity. I feel like I have an affinity with this child. That was the truth. The young man's black and white eyes were clear like spring water. It was pleasing to look at. Vaguely, there was a sense of familiarity between his eyebrows. Elder Xiao Yi's mouth twitched. All right. Since I've brought him here, I won't stay any longer. After that, he left with Chu Luiwei. Not long after, Chu Luiwei smelled a strong medicinal fragrance coming from the mountain. Her eyes lit up. Someone was forming a pill. Chapter 11:14. Soon she realized that it was not just one person who was refining the pill, but two. On a short mountain peak, two youths were facing each other. There was a cauldron in front of each of them. Flames were rising from the cauldrons, and one could vaguely see a pill the size of a longan fruit. The rich medicinal fragrance came from this cauldron. There was a stone platform beside each of them. There were several black jade tokens on one stone platform, while there was only one on the other stone platform. This seemed to be a competition. There were a few people standing around the two youths, as if they were watching the competition. As for the black jade token on the stone platform, it should belong to them. Chu Luiwei took a closer look. The two youths looked to be around 23 or 24 years old. The one on the left was tall and skinny. He wore a blue robe and had a decent appearance. His eyes were fixed on the pill that was about to be completed in the cauldron. His originally fair face was slightly flushed, and fine sweat appeared on his forehead. It was obvious that he was at the end of his rope. On the other hand, the person opposite him wore a black brocade robe and had deep facial features. Compared to his opponent, his expression was much more relaxed. The outcome of this battle was clear at a glance. Looks like Daoist Xian is going to win again. Elder Xiao Yi seemed to be used to this scene. He stroked his beard and said, if he wins this round, he will have won 5 rounds in a row. Chu Luiwei followed his gaze and realized that he was staring at the youth with deep facial features. Most of the black jade tokens were indeed placed on the stone platform beside him. Clearly, everyone believed that he would win. On the other hand, the blue-robed youth only had one black jade token on the stone platform. That should be his. Elder Xiao Yi sensed her gaze and saw the curiosity in her eyes. He chuckled and explained, that's right. They are betting on pills. Betting on pills? Chu Luiwei was stunned for a moment. That's right. There are many celestial physician students in the academy. They are not convinced of each other's strength, so they often bet on pills. The two participants will choose the time and place to compete. Whoever could refine a higher-grade pill with better medicinal effects would be considered the winner. However, what was different from a normal competition was that before the competition, they had to place their bets. Anything was fine with this bet. As for the spectators, they also have to place bets before the competition starts. Chu Luiwen narrowed his eyes. Other than that, if I win the bet, there should be other rewards, right? A simple bet wasn't enough to make these geniuses scramble like ducks. It was fine if it happened once in a while, but if it happened often, it was really unnecessary. If he had the time, he might as well use it to research pill recipes. Since so many people were so enthusiastic about it, there must be some other reason. Elder Qiao Yi looked at her with admiration. You're smart. These bets were actually not the main point. The main point was that winning or losing this pill bet would affect their points in the academy. Points. In the academy, most things require different amounts of points to exchange for. In other words, points were the hard currency of the academy, which was also money. They can be used to exchange for herbs, books, or anything else you want. When it comes to pill bets, other than the usual bets, they would often bet their points too. With this method, they can accumulate points at an extremely fast speed. Of course, if they lose, they will lose everything. Chu Luiwen nodded in understanding and looked at the black jade tokens placed on the two stone platforms. The spectators will also bet their points? That's right. There will be more and less, and the winning rate will be different. They have already communicated with each other beforehand. As long as it was a normal pill bet and nothing happened, the elders of the academy would support it. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't interfere. Elder Qiao Yi looked at her and chuckled. Do you want to bet too? You just entered the academy today, so you should have 100 points. Chu Luiwen curled her fingers. I'm a newcomer, is that all right? What's wrong with that? Elder Qiao Yi waved his sleeves and flew down. Chu Luiwen followed closely behind him. Sensing the presence of someone behind them, the few people who had been watching the battle attentively turned around to look. Elder Qiao Yi. Upon seeing the other party's face, they hurriedly bowed. Elder Qiao Yi waved his hands and smiled. There's no need to stand on ceremony. I brought you a new seedling who just entered the academy. The few of them turned to look at Chu Luiwen behind him. Chu Luiwen clasped her fist and bowed. Paying respects to senior brothers. The few of them returned the greeting politely, but they still looked at Chu Luiwen doubtfully. May I know what rank this junior is at now? Chu Luiwen smiled. 8th rank. A hint of understanding flashed across their eyes, and there was a hint of contempt in their eyes. Elder Qiao Yi knew these people very well, and he couldn't help but chuckle. A 16-year-old 8th rank celestial physician. He should be quite popular here, right? The few students were taken aback, and they looked at Chu Luiwen in a completely different manner. Chu, whoever you think will win, just put your own black jade token up there. Elder Qiao Yi patted Chu Luiwen's shoulders energetically. After all, he was the one who brought the other party in, so he had to back him up. A god-tier cultivator slapped Chu Luiwen's shoulder, causing half of her shoulder to go numb. However, it was fortunate that she had cultivated under the guidance of Duge Mabao for a period of time, so her resistance to blows had increased significantly. At this moment, she was barely able to stabilize herself. Originally, they shouldn't have participated in the pill gambling at this point. However, since Elder Qiao Yi had spoken, they couldn't refute him. Forget it, I'll just treat it as a greeting gift for the new junior. Chu Luiwen glanced at them and walked towards one of them. Then, he placed the black jade token on the platform. The black jade token on the platform turned from 1 to 2. Sigh. Elder Qiao Yi raised his hand wanting to stop him, but it was too late. You child. Didn't Elder Qiao Yi already say that Tuoba Xian would definitely win? Just by looking at the number of black jade tokens on both sides of the platform, it was obvious who had a higher chance of winning. Elder Qiao Yi was exasperated at Tuoba Xian's failure to live up to his expectations. When the few people beside him saw this, They looked at each other, and mockery flashed across their eyes. A 16-year-old 8th-rank celestial physician. It sounded quite impressive, but it didn't seem like he had any real skills. They were already at the last step of pill formation. How could he make the wrong choice? Chu Luiwei didn't seem to notice this. After putting down the black jade token, he walked back with a calm expression. Elder Qiao Yi lowered his voice. Chu Yu, what are you doing? You only have 100 points. After this round, all of them will be deducted. Chu Luiwei blinked. Isn't pill gambling supposed to be a gamble? Digression, you. Take a gamble and turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. Chapter 11:15. Elder Qiao Yi shook his head inwardly. To think that he thought that this child was obedient and steady. Who knew that he would be so daring? Even if he wanted to bet, he had to win. How could he bet on losing? Great, he had just arrived at the academy and was about to lose everything. Don't do this again in the future. You don't know how hard it is to earn points. Elder Qiao Yi said earnestly. Chu Luiwei nodded seriously. However, it was another matter whether they took his advice or not. At this moment, a buzzing sound could be heard. The surrounding people looked up and saw that the sound came from Daoba Xian's cauldron. It's about to succeed. Someone shouted in a low voice. The medicinal fragrance became stronger. Flames rose, and on the surface of the pill, lines and lines appeared one after another. Everyone could not help but hold their breaths. However, at this moment, a slight fluctuation suddenly came from the cauldron. Daoba Xian's expression changed slightly. Then, without giving him any time to react, the pill suddenly exploded. Boom! There was a loud explosion. Daoba Xian was the first to bear the brunt of the impact. He was immediately flung out by the terrifying force and fell heavily to the ground. However, he could not care about himself. He hurriedly got up and looked at his cauldron. The flames inside had been completely extinguished. The pill was also destroyed, leaving only a handful of ashes. A faint burnt smell filled the air. Daoba Xian's face turned pale. How could? He had only made a small mistake just now. He thought that he had repaired it. Who knew that it was still? The sudden explosion also shocked the surrounding people. Almost at the same time, Zhong Sun had also reached the final stage. His face was red and his lips were pale. Sweat kept dripping from his forehead. It was obvious that he could not hold on any longer. However, his feet were still rooted to the ground. He used all his strength to inject his last bit of energy into the pill. Buzz! A fluctuation hit the cauldron. A rich medicinal fragrance exploded. Several veined patterns appeared on the medicinal pill one after another. Then, the pill suddenly rushed out. Zhong Sun hurriedly took out a jade box and put it inside. The jade box closed. That medicinal pill had been locked inside obediently. He stumbled and almost fell to the ground. After he steadied himself, he was finally able to catch his breath. Looking at the crowd, his tired face was filled with undisguised joy. I won. Everyone fell silent. No one had expected that Daoba Yu, who'd originally occupied the upper hand all along the way and had victory within his grasp, would actually fail at the final moment and lose to Zhong Sun. Even Elder Qiao Yi was stunned for a moment. Congratulations. The person who spoke was Chu Luiwei. Zhong Sun looked at her and smiled. Thank you for supporting me earlier. Chu Luiwei blinked. Senior brother, I just wanted to take a risk. I should be the one thanking you. You won't blame me for sharing your points, right? How could this be? Zhong Sun laughed. He had won quite a bit in this comeback, so it was not a big deal to share some with this junior brother. Most importantly, this person was the only one who stood out to support him when he was at his weakest. He had to admit that he did not have much confidence in himself at that time. Only this junior brother of his helped him to calm his mind. That was more important than anything else. Zhong Sun walked to another stone platform. Daoba Xian had already stood up with a complicated expression. Everyone, I won't stand on ceremony with you for the previous bet and points. Zhong Sun said with a smile. Daoba Xian took a deep breath. If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to admit defeat. Take it. I'll get it back from you next time. Zhong Sun touched each of the black jade tokens with his own. Rays of light flashed. Chu Luiwei realized that the black jade tokens also had their own secrets. After Zhong Sun searched through all the black jade tokens, he walked back to her side and said with a smile, "I'm sorry. Little junior brother, give it to me." Chu Luiwei handed her token over. With a flash of light, a few lines of small words appeared on her black jade token. Chu Luiwei quickly scanned it and realized that there were a few more things inside. There were herbs, prescriptions, and so on. There was a number at the bottom. 1,000. That should be her share of the points. Senior brother, my name is Zhong Sun. Zhong Sun smiled and returned the items to Chu Luiwei. You deserve all of this. Don't stand on ceremony. Chu Luiwei hesitated for a moment, but finally took it and smiled. Thank you, senior brother Zhong Sun. This black jade token indeed had the same effect as the universe ring. As if seeing through her thoughts, Zhong Sun explained, a lot of things can be stored in the black jade token. As the points increase, the space will become larger. Moreover, as long as it enters your black jade token, it will be marked with your aura. Therefore, you don't have to worry about it being stolen or robbed. Chu Luiwei thought that this thing was indeed convenient. Just this point alone could dispel many people's crooked thoughts. The bets won from normal pill gambling, or the items that you take the initiative to give away, will also be recorded. It won't cause trouble. This made Chu Luiwei regard the black jade token in her hand even more highly. I didn't know that this thing was so formidable. Of course. The black jade token of every student in the academy is specially refined by the elder of the armament master. Elder Qiao Yi added. As he spoke, he walked over and looked at Chu Luiwei with a surprised gaze. You're quite lucky. Even under such circumstances, you actually won the bet. Chu Luiwei smiled faintly. My luck has always been good. But this time, it's all thanks to you and senior brother Zhong Sun. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had this chance. Elder Qiao Yi was pleased to hear that. Alright, now that you're here, you should learn from them during this period of time. At the beginning of the month, you can take the examination and acknowledge them as your teacher. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Chu Luiwei replied. The other students also hurriedly sent him off. Elder Qiao Yi's figure quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. The surroundings quickly quietened down. What's your name? Tuoba Xian's voice came from behind. Chu Luiwei turned around and smiled faintly. Chu Yu. Chu Yu? Tuoba Xian swallowed a mouthful of blood in his throat and looked at her suspiciously. Why did you bet on him winning just now? Chu Luiwei's expression didn't change. It's more interesting to win with a small bet. If he were to follow the trend, he would only be taking a mouthful of the other party's soup. Moreover, Zhong Sun was definitely going to win this round. Why did she have to make things difficult for herself? Tuoba Xian's expression became more restrained as he thought to himself that he was thinking too much. She was just an 8th grade celestial physician. She shouldn't be able to see anything. Perhaps, it was really just a coincidence? Junior brother Chu Yu, I'll bring you around. It'll be the beginning of the month in a few days. There's not much time left for you to prepare. Zhong Sun said. Chu Luiwei nodded. Thank you, senior brother Zhong Sun. Chapter 11:16. Elder Qiao Yi's previous worries were a little unnecessary. He never would have thought that although Chu Luiwei had no status or background, he relied on a pill bet to help her gain a foothold. At the very least, with a senior like Zhong Sun taking the initiative to help her, it could save her a lot of trouble. Although most celestial physicians were proud, they would have a good impression of those who chose to stand on their side in times of trouble. Zhong Sun brought Chu Luiwei around. After interacting for a period of time, he felt that this new junior brother was not bad. Although he was young, he was very sensible and polite. His appearance could only be considered delicate and clean, and he was not an eye-catching existence in the crowd. However, there seemed to be a natural noble aura in his bones. This rare aura made him stand out from the rest. At first, Zhong Sun felt that since the other party had supported him during the pill bet, He had to give him some face. But slowly he had some thoughts of befriending him. This young man named Chu Yu was indeed outstanding in all aspects. He should be the young master of some aristocratic family. Zhong Sun thought to himself. This kind of bearing was definitely not something an ordinary person could have. Even though Zhang Xian didn't say much about his background, seemingly intending to conceal it, there were quite a few students who did the same here as well, so it wasn't too surprising. Therefore, Zhong Sun did not care much. Chu Luiwei followed him to visit many places, but they did not meet many people on the way. It's almost the end of the month, and everyone is busy cultivating and preparing for the examination at the beginning of the month. Walking on a shady stone road, Zhong Sun explained. In addition to the new students taking the examination, the older students also have their own missions. You have to know that the competition here is very intense. Although Zhong Sun said this with a smile, it was not difficult to see his serious expression. Chu Luiwei nodded. The #1 academy in the Divine Ruins world gathered all the talents in the world. It would be strange if the competition was not intense. I just had a breakthrough a few days ago, so I wanted to find Tuoba Xian to practice. Actually, he was not too confident. Who knew? It could only be said that no matter how strong you were, you had to treat every pill refinement with caution and go all out. Otherwise, there will be people waiting to pull you down at any time. That senior martial brother seems to be breaking through soon. Chu Luiwei said. Zhong Sun looked at her in surprise. How do you know? Chu Luiwei paused. This kind of thing was actually very easy to see. However, the prerequisite was that one's strength had to be greater than the other parties, or at least the same. Tuoba Xian was a 9th-grade celestial physician. He seemed to be trying to concoct a 9th-grade pill, but he didn't succeed. Although Chu Luiwei had not fully recovered his strength, his eyesight was still there. However, these words could not be said. I guessed. Chu Luiwei said with a smile. When I want to break through, I also like to find people to spar with. Zhong Sun saw her sincere expression and did not doubt her. There's another reason why he agreed to my invitation. If he can win 5 rounds in a row, his points will double. Tuoba Xian was confident that he could win, so he agreed to this bet. Unfortunately, he was too impatient. Points. Points again. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but ask. It seems that points are really very important? Of course. Zhong Sun laughed. You just entered the academy, so it's normal that you don't understand these things. Although Elder Qiao Yi has already explained it to you, there are many things that you have to experience slowly before you can truly understand. As he spoke, he sized up Chu Luiwei. Do you want the formula for a 9th-grade pill? Chu Luiwei looked at his face and swallowed the words not interested. She smiled slightly. Yes. In the academy, a 9th-grade pill formula can be bought with 1,000 points. Of course, it's a low-grade one. If you want a middle-grade or high-grade one, you have to add points. However, as long as you have enough points, there's nothing you can't buy here. As Zhong Sun spoke, his expression was somewhat agitated. Lingxiao College had been passed down for 10,000 years and had a deep foundation. It was definitely not inferior to any first-rate family in the Divine Ruins world. Or even stronger. Things that couldn't be found outside, things that couldn't be bought with money, things that were priceless, and things that people had never even heard of, were all available here. As long as you have enough points, you can exchange for it. This was enough to show how important points were. Chu Luiwei blinked and nodded as if he had understood. If that's the case, then it's really important. Doesn't that mean my current 1,000 points are useless? It was only enough to buy a pill formula for a lower 9th-grade pill. It was not enough to waste time and feelings. However, Zhong Sun did not see the faint disdain in her eyes. So, once you enter, you must work hard to earn points. But you don't have to worry. You've only just arrived today, and you've already gone from 100 to 1,000. You're already better than many people. Over time, your points will quickly accumulate. After he finished speaking, he noticed that the young man in front of him had his head lowered slightly. He didn't know what he was thinking. Chuyu? Chuyu? After shouting twice, the young man raised his head and smiled at him. His black eyes were shining brightly under the sunlight. Senior brother Zhong Sun is right. The handsome young man raised the corners of his lips and smiled gently and harmlessly. There should be other people gambling in the academy right now, right? I wonder if I can trouble senior brother Zhong Sun to make a trip. I want to take a look. Digression, happy Mid-Autumn Festival, everyone. I'll continue to update at 6 p.m. Yes, I'll add another update today. I recommend my friend Xiao Yao use, the detective's wife is the best. Detective Sister vs. Sickly Medical Examiner. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Crack. It actually struck the famous underworld boss directly into the body of the criminal police captain, Su Qing. The identity changed, and the black and white positions changed. Thus, everyone opened their eyes. The variety of methods of solving cases and the endless style of investigating cases were unheard of and unseen. It was simply the flower of the police world. It was just that this flower only wanted to pick a police grass to taste. Chapter 11:17. The arrival of Chu Luiyue and the others didn't cause any waves in Lingxiao College. New students would come in every few days, and everyone was already used to it. There were only 3 days left until the assessment at the beginning of the month. They were already too busy with their own matters, so how could they care about anything else? There were countless geniuses in the world, and here, strength was the most important thing. Fang Zhou. After Elder Wenxi left with the others, Elder Huafeng was the only one left to guard the place. Soon it was night time. Elder Huafeng packed up his things and returned to the courtyard. Sitting on a stone bench in the courtyard, the surroundings were silent. However, Elder Huafeng's mood was not calm. It's been so long. Why hasn't he come out yet? Staring at the twinkling stars in the sky, Elder Huafeng muttered softly. It was really wrong. He had clearly felt that person coming. That familiar aura, even if he died, he would never mistake it. At first, when that person didn't appear, Elder Huafeng thought that the other party was deliberately playing around. But after waiting and being vigilant for a day, he didn't even see half a figure. Elder Huafeng stroked his beard and had a headache. It was like knowing that there was a landmine buried beside you, but you didn't know where it was and when it would suddenly explode. His heart was hanging in the air. This feeling was really not good. Elder Huafeng thought for a while before grabbing the wine pot at his waist and taking a long sip. It burned his throat. He wiped his mouth forcefully and snorted. If you don't want to come, then don't come. Who wants to wait for you? After saying that, he got up and went back to his room. He lifted the quilt and lay on the bed to rest. The moonlight shone in from the window. Voila! Elder Huafeng jumped up in annoyance. So annoying. When this old man finds you, let's see how I'll deal with you. Late at night. At night, Fangzhou City was no longer as lively as during the day. It fell into silence. A slightly stooped figure walked back and forth between the wide streets and narrow alleys. His footsteps seemed to be slow and silent, but they were very fast. Even if there were occasionally people passing by at night, they wouldn't notice. Strange, there's nothing here. After searching for a long time, Elder Huafeng finally found a remote corner and stopped. He had a headache. Could it really be an illusion? After pondering for a long time, Elder Huafeng finally gritted his teeth and headed towards the city gates. As usual, there was no one guarding the city gate at night. However, no one was allowed to enter or leave this place at night. Thus, at this moment the city gate was also very quiet and empty. Elder Huafeng walked to the door and held his breath. Gradually, his expression became resolute. That was definitely not an illusion. Then, his gaze shifted and he looked at the gap on the city gate that had been cut open. It's been a few years since we last met, but your patience has improved by quite a bit. Elder Huafeng snorted. Let's see how long you can last this time. Elder Huafeng didn't sleep the entire night. The next morning, he sensed that someone was coming. It was the next elder in charge of receiving them, Guansong. Elder Guansong was shocked when he saw Elder Huafeng's haggard expression. What's going on? I've only been guarding here for half a day, How did it become like this? Elder Hua Feng choked. He couldn't say that he was waiting for that little scourge. It's nothing, it's nothing. It's good that you're here. Elder Guan Song glanced at the empty wine pot on his waist and said with concern, "Why don't you go back earlier? I think no need." Elder Hua Feng refused straightforwardly. He had already changed his mind. He insisted on waiting here. Elder Hua Feng waited for 3 days. Several elders had changed in the middle, but Elder Hua Feng still stood his ground and didn't leave. However, no matter how he waited and searched, that person was still nowhere to be seen. Elder Hua Feng's heart was devastated. "If you're back, you should have come out after hiding for a few days." "If you don't come back," Elder Hua Feng's eyes lit up. Could it be that little scourge really didn't come back? After thinking for a long time, Elder Hua Feng finally returned the day before the beginning of the month. "I'm not waiting anymore. Taking in a disciple is more important." At this moment, on a certain mountain within Lingxiao College, in the middle of the open space, 2 young men were facing each other. The hundreds of people in the surroundings all gathered into a circle. Beside the 2 young men were 2 stone platforms. On top of each of them were their own black jade tokens. The atmosphere was tense. Obviously, this was another pill bet. But at this moment, the 2 young men had yet to start, and everyone's gaze was on a figure in the crowd. It was a young man in a green brocade robe. His features were delicate and clean. "Chu Yu, who do you bet on to win this round?" Zhong Sun, who was standing beside him, asked. As soon as he said this, the scene became even quieter. Some people subconsciously held their breaths and stared at the youth who was being questioned. It was as if they were waiting for his answer. Under these blazing gazes, Chu Luiyue felt a headache coming on. Things seemed to be a little serious. In fact, it was very simple. 3 days ago, she asked Zhong Sun to take her to see if there were any other pill bets. She wanted to earn some pocket money for herself. In the end, after she won 5 consecutive rounds, things began to develop out of control. Many people heard that a junior brother had just joined the academy and won 5 consecutive rounds of pill bets. The key was that he chose all 5 rounds with high odds. Just when everyone thought that he would be defeated, he turned the tables and directly earned the points that countless people had painstakingly accumulated for a long time. This allowed this junior brother to earn 100 times the starting point on the first day of school. Once this news spread, it immediately caused quite a stir. Pill bets were very common in the academy. On one hand, everyone could learn from each other. On the other hand, it could also promote entertainment and adjust one's mood. Therefore, as long as someone started, there would be many people following. Most of them would win and lose. After all, there were too many aspects to pay attention to when it came to pill refinement. Even if one's level was higher, they could lose if they made a slight mistake in the competition. This kind of uncertainty also made pill bets more interesting. But now, a fledgling kid actually won 5 consecutive rounds. How could it not make people curious and shocked? Therefore, more and more people followed the trend. Today, wherever Chu Luiyue went, the bets would be very lively. Everyone was waiting for her to make a decision. Chu Luiyue rubbed the space between her eyebrows. It was really a coincidence. On the first day, she deliberately chose those competitions with high odds just to earn some quick money. Who knew that things would turn out like this? I think. Chu Luiyue walked towards one of the stone platforms. Just as she placed her black jade token on it, she heard a loud voice coming from the sky. "What are you guys doing? Tomorrow is the beginning of the month assessment. What are you all doing here?" Everyone looked up. Chu Luiyue also looked up. "Which bastard organized this? Step forward." Everyone quickly put away their black jade tokens and looked at Chu Luiyue in unison. Chu Luiyue, who had just put down the black jade token, was confused. Chapter 11:18. "It's you. Come here." As he spoke, the elder had already flown over from afar and landed on the ground. Everyone took a step back in unison and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Elder Wan Zheng." Elder Wan Zheng snorted coldly. "I'll deal with you later." He looked at the culprit, Chu Luiyue. You lad, eh? Elder Wan Zheng was stunned when he saw the unfamiliar face. You're new here? Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched. He took a step forward, cupped his fists, and bowed respectfully. Student Chu Yu greets Elder Wan Zheng. So you're Chu Yu? Elder Wan Zheng had heard of this name before. 2 days ago, he had heard Wenxi mention that he had recruited a rare genius for them. He was only 16, but he was already an 8th grade celestial physician. Initially, Elder Wan Zheng thought that Chu Yu was busy familiarizing himself with the academy and his cultivation. After all, it was the start of the month examination. Who would have thought that he would be doing nothing here? Seeing that the lad before him was polite and young, Elder Wan Zheng's anger subsided a little. However, his tone was still impolite. Chu Yu, don't you know that pill gambling is prohibited on the last day of the month? Chu Luiyue was dumbfounded. How did she know? No one told her at all. Zhong Sun quickly stepped forward to explain. Elder Wan Zheng, it's all my fault. Junior Chu Yu just arrived. I didn't make it clear to him, so he doesn't know. You don't know either? Elder Wan Zheng interrupted his words and looked around with a dignified expression. Everyone looked at each other and fell silent. Those present have violated the academy rules. 3,000 points will be deducted from each of you. Everyone wailed. They just wanted to earn some money. They hadn't even started yet. How could they be deducted so much? Elder Wan Zheng raised his eyebrows. You want to double it? Everyone immediately fell silent. The two who made the pill gambling agreement will be deducted 5,000 points each. The two people standing beside the cauldron were furious, but they didn't dare to say anything. Who told them to do it knowingly? Originally, he was just hoping for a fluke and wanted to make some preparations before the beginning of the month. Who knew that his cleverness would backfire on him? Now, he could only accept the deduction of 5,000 yuan. And you? Elder Wan Zheng looked at Chu Luiyue. Taking the lead in gambling, even though you didn't know anything about it, your points will still be deducted. Since this is your first offense, I'll deduct 5,000. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. It wasn't easy for her to earn more than 20,000 yuan in the past 3 days, and now she had lost 5,000 yuan. It could be said that she had suffered a heavy loss. Elder Wan Zheng, little junior brother, is innocent in this matter. It's all our fault for not informing him in time and guiding him properly. You can deduct these 5,000 points from me. Zhong Sun hurriedly said. He also blamed himself in his heart. Actually, they didn't do it on purpose. Although the academy had set a rule that alchemy gambling was not allowed on the last day of the month, there was actually a limit to it. There could not be more than 2 people. In other words, other than the 2 parties involved in the bet, as long as no one else joined in the bet, it would not be considered a violation. In the end, they gathered over 100 people all of a sudden. It would be strange if Elder Wan Zheng was not angry. Fortunately, the competition had not officially started, or the punishment would be even worse. He had been with little junior brother for the past 2 days and saw that he kept winning. In a moment of excitement, he forgot about this matter. In the end, he implicated everyone, especially little junior brother who had just arrived and didn't know anything. Senior brother Zhong Sun, thank you for your kind intentions, but since this matter was done by me, I should bear the responsibility. Chu Luiyue shook his head and rejected Zhong Sun's help. Elder Wan Zheng narrowed his eyes. That's more like it. As he said that, he waved his wrist and took out his green jade token. Whether it was the size or the appearance of the green jade token, it was slightly different from theirs. Obviously, this was something that only the elders would have. Now line up one by one. At Elder Wan Zheng's command, everyone could only go forward obediently. They lined up and placed their black jade tokens on the platform one by one. Rays of light flashed one after another. Many people showed a pained expression, but they didn't dare to say anything. Soon, even the 2 who hadn't had a chance to compete walked over and deducted 5,000 each. Zhong Sun glanced at Chu Luiyue hesitantly. Chu Luiyue took the initiative to step forward and placed his black jade token in front of Elder Wan Zheng. A white ray of light flashed across. The number on the token was reduced significantly. Chu Liyue's attitude made Elder Wang Zheng feel much better. That's more like it. You should learn more about the rules of the academy in the future, lest something like this happens again due to ignorance. Chu Liyue replied obediently. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Wang Zheng. I'll remember it. That's good. You're a good seedling, so don't waste your time on those messy matters. Be prepared today and perform well tomorrow. A rare smile finally appeared on Elder Wang Zheng's face. Chu Liyue nodded. Elder Wang Zheng waved his hand. You can all disperse. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd responded in unison and dispersed in a hubbub. Chu Liyue, in the blink of an eye, only the three of them were left on the huge mountain. Elder Wang Zheng gave a few more words of advice and left. Looking at the empty surroundings, Chu Liyue was speechless, which was rare. Junior brother Chu Yu, don't take it to heart. Elder Wang Zheng said those words for your own good. He didn't mean to blame you. Zhong Sun saw that there was something wrong with her expression and hurriedly consoled her. It's my fault too, senior brother Zhong Sun, you don't have to blame yourself. Chu Liyue shook her head. I know that it was Elder Wang Zheng's good intentions. I just find it a little strange. What's strange? The overall atmosphere of Lingxiao College is very good, and everyone knows what they're doing. Why did they set such a rule? They couldn't gamble at the end of the month. If they really didn't like it, they could have just banned it. Why did they have to set the last day? Oh, you're talking about this. Zhong Sun smiled knowingly. You're new here, so you don't know. At the beginning of every month, everyone will crazily consume points. Therefore, many people will crazily accumulate wealth on the first day, trying to get as many points as possible so that they can gain more advantages. You'll slowly find out the specifics in the future. The Academy set this rule on one hand to prevent people from maliciously competing and robbing others of their points. On the other hand, thinking of something, Zhong Sun's expression changed slightly and his eyes darkened. Chu Liyue looked at him. What's wrong with the other hand? Actually, I heard about this too. Zhong Sun hesitated for a moment before saying slowly. This rule has never been set in the Academy before. However, a few years ago, a student took advantage of the opportunity of pill gambling at the end of the month and pocketed 1/3 of the points of the students in the Academy, causing those people to be unable to cultivate normally for several months. Since then, the Academy specially added this rule. It was to prevent the same thing from happening again. Chu Liyue blinked and asked with interest, why? Who is that person? So powerful? Digression, Happy Mid-Autumn Festival. Chapter 11:19. Zhong Sun shook his head. I've only been in the academy for 2 years and have never seen that person. I heard that she only stayed in the academy for about half a year before leaving. But to this day, there are still many rumors about that person in the academy. He clicked his tongue. I heard that she's a rare all-rounder. All-rounder? Yes. Other than being a martial artist, a mystic cultivator, and a celestial physician, she's also good at refining. And her talent in all aspects is top-notch. I heard that when she first came to the academy, there were no less than a dozen elders competing for the qualifications to become her master. In the end, the dean had no choice but to personally take her in as a disciple. That was the first disciple the dean had taken in 100 years. Chu Liyue raised his eyebrows slightly. She was even good at refining. She was indeed worthy of the title of all-rounder. What kind of genius had the elders of Lingxiao College not seen before? To be able to make them like this, it was enough to show how outstanding that person was. It's a pity that she suddenly disappeared half a year later and never returned. From then on, none of the elders in the academy mentioned that person's name again. It was as if she had never existed. Gradually, everyone stopped talking about it. Zhong Sun sighed. The reason why I've heard of this is because I once accidentally broke into her medicinal garden and was secretly warned by a senior martial sister. Only then did I know. Medicinal garden? Chu Liyue was a little puzzled. Didn't they say that the medicinal herbs used by everyone in the academy were all obtained from the medicine Wind Valley? Lingxiao College occupied an extremely large area with continuous mountain ranges. In this area of the celestial physician, there was a place specially used to grow medicinal herbs called the Medicine Wind Valley. Nourished by the essence of heaven and earth for 10,000 years, the Medicine Wind Valley became an excellent treasure ground for cultivating all kinds of precious herbs. Most of the medicinal herbs produced in the academy came from there. Oh, the dean specially dug out a piece of land from the Medicine Wind Valley for her and used it as her personal medicinal garden. When she refined medicine, she could only use the medicinal herbs grown in her own medicinal garden. Why is that? If she was an all-rounder, then she would need a lot of medicinal herbs in alchemy. Wouldn't that be cutting off her path to becoming a celestial physician? Even if they dug up the land, how slow would it be to nurture the herbs themselves? One had to know that many medicinal herbs required hundreds or even thousands of years to achieve sufficient medicinal effects. That's not the case. She can also use the medicinal herbs of the Medicine Wind Valley. She just needs to write a list in advance and wait for the elder in charge of guarding the Medicine Wind Valley to look over it. If you agree, she can use it. If you don't, then... Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. Why are there such strange rules? Zhong Sun paused. Because she has only been in the academy for a month, and she has already used all of the best medicinal herbs in the Medicine Wind Valley. Chu Luiyue. I see. In that case, that person was truly a capable person. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and smiled lazily. Even though he caused such a ruckus, the dean and the elders still couldn't beat him? Zhong Sun looked at him with a strange expression. The seniors are highly respected. How could they lay their hands on a young lady? Chu Luiyue. That's a woman? I didn't say it was a man, did I? Zhong Sun asked. Chu Luiyue smiled. When I heard that she was so powerful, I subconsciously thought that way. I heard that the dean and the elders really doted on her at that time, especially Elder Huafeng. He even taught her Xian formations step by step. But later on, for some reason, she disappeared inexplicably, and no one mentioned it anymore. Junior brother Chu Yu, I've said so much to you today. It's all for us to talk about it in private. You don't have to take it to heart, like the others. Senior brother Zhong Sun, don't worry. I know what to say and what to do. Chu Luiyue smiled. Zhong Sun heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Yu was a smart person. With a little guidance, he could understand it. Indeed, he didn't need to worry too much. That's good. You don't have to think too much about other things for the time being. You just have to make preparations to deal with the assessment at the beginning of the month tomorrow and successfully become a disciple. I've already told you about the situation of the elders. Do you know what to do now? Chu Luiyue nodded. Zhong Sun was relieved and smiled. Then I'll wait for junior brother Chu Yu to amaze the world tomorrow. After that, Chu Luiyue followed Zhong Sun back to his place of residence. Like the other peaks, there were some independent houses and courtyards here. Zhong Sun lived in one of them. Coincidentally, there was an empty courtyard not far from where he was staying, and Chu Luiyue was currently staying there. After bidding farewell to Zhong Sun, Chu Luiyue walked into the house. Tomorrow I should be able to see the others in the academy. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and began to cultivate. On the other side, after Elder Wan Zheng settled the matters here, he returned to Qingming Square. On the clean square, the white jade stones reflected a faint light. One could vaguely see the flickering light on them. If it was a powerful Xian master, he would be able to see that the light had silently formed several complicated Xian formations that overlapped with each other. Elder Wan Zheng walked to the front of the Donghuang Bell Tower. Below the Donghuang Bell Tower was a thick and sturdy base. There were a total of 4 doors. Each door faced the north, south, east, and west respectively. On the bronze door, there were lifelike carvings. Elder Wan Zheng walked to one of the doors, took out his green jade token, and placed it on top of the door. When the door opened, there was a large hall inside. He lifted his foot and entered. If it wasn't for the urgent situation this time, we wouldn't be in such a hurry to call you back. Elder Wan Zheng walked in and soon heard a familiar voice coming from the front. Everyone is now an important figure in the various sections. For you to take the time to come here, it's really, Elder, you're exaggerating. We're all students of the academy. If the academy is in trouble, we'll naturally do our best. A young man's voice sounded. But I wonder what's the matter that made all the elders so worried? You've been unwilling to tell us these few days. Now that everyone is here, you can finally tell us, right? Elder Wan Zheng walked in from the darkness. The hall was brightly lit. There were about 20 people here. A few of them were the elders of the Spirit Firmament Academy with the highest status. The remaining 10 or so people looked younger and had an extraordinary aura. They were the reinforcements that the academy had sent a letter to invite. They were all students from first-rate families in the academy. At this moment, everyone was sitting on two sides. The atmosphere was a little strange. Hearing the commotion, everyone turned around. Elder Wan Zheng's expression turned serious. I was dealing with something just now. I'm not late, right? Of course not. You're just in time. The young man who spoke just now smiled. The saint of Yuntian Tower has just arrived. Everyone has been waiting for him, so we haven't said anything yet. Chapter 11:20. The hall fell into a moment of silence. Many people quietly looked at Rong Xiu, who was sitting next to the elders, with different expressions. These words were obviously directed at him. However, unexpectedly, Rong Xiu did not seem to be angry. He smiled slightly, and his noble and enchanting face was instantly filled with vigor. It was as if one would forever sink into the depths of those unfathomable eyes. Recently, the clan has been busy with matters, and I really can't split myself. I hope the elders can forgive me. Elder Bo Yen, who was sitting at the head of the table, smiled. We have all heard about the Yuntian Tower. You have decided on a princess consort? Everyone's eyes fell on Rong Xiu. Yes. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly, and the angle of his smile deepened. Even the corners of his eyes seemed to have a hint of a smile. It's her first time at the Yuntian Tower, and there are many things she is not used to, so I stayed for a few more days. Everyone's expression was even more strange. Who in the hall did not know Rong Xiu's nature? Who had not seen his methods? This was a person who killed without batting an eyelid. Now, he was suddenly so gentle and infatuated with a girl. It was simply unimaginable. It seems that Your Highness the Holy Sun really cares about this princess consort. You would rather put aside the crisis of the academy than let her be sad and fearful. I couldn't tell that Your Highness the Holy Sun was actually such a devoted person. The one who spoke was still the man who had provoked him previously. Rong Xiu looked up slightly, and there seemed to be a whirlpool swirling in his black pupils. A cold and sharp light flashed past. That man suddenly froze. Even if I didn't come, the academy still has the elders to hold the fort. Young Master Wei's words, are you doubting the elders' abilities? Wei Shiping choked. He could not say this in front of everyone. What's more, she's Ai's princess consort. If I don't pamper her, do you think it's someone else's turn? Although Rong Xiu said this with a smile, his eyes were half squinted and the corners of his eyes seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. There was a bit of frost in his eyes, which made people feel a chill in their hearts. There was fire in Wei Shiping's chest, and he was fuming. Just as he was about to retort, Elder Bo Yen had already spoken. All right. There was no need to discuss these things for the time being. The most important thing right now is still that matter. Elder Wanzheng also walked over and sat on one of the last two empty chairs. All right, now that everyone is here, next, Elder Bo Yen, is the dean not coming today? A young woman beside him asked. In such an occasion, the dean should be in charge of the overall situation. Elder Bo Yan's expression did not change. The dean is still in seclusion. For the time being, I will still be in charge of everything in the academy. There was nothing wrong with this reason, but it still made some people frown slightly. This was because the dean had been in seclusion for a long time. Until now, the dean did not seem to have any intention of coming out of seclusion. It was hard not to be doubtful. But Elder Bo Yen did not give them a chance to continue this topic. This matter was briefly mentioned in the letter I sent to all of you previously, but as for the specifics, it is more appropriate to tell all of you personally. Hearing Elder Bo Yan's serious tone, everyone became even quieter, all of them listening attentively. In fact, the Academy did not only send them a message this time. There were at least 100 people who received the letter. But among them, only these were qualified to sit here. For example, Jiang Jiwon also received the letter, even earlier than Rong Xiu. But at this moment she could only wait outside. At the same time, in the Mystic Master area of the Academy, in an exquisite courtyard on a mountain peak, a few women were sitting in a circle. Ziwon, tomorrow is the beginning of the month assessment. I heard that you learned a new martial technique. Are you going to show it this time? A pretty woman asked curiously. Jiang Jiwon did not react, as if she did not hear her. Ziwon? Ziwon? After shouting twice, Jiang Jiwon came back to her senses and met their gazes. She reacted for a moment before she understood what had happened and nodded lightly. Yes, I do plan to. With that, her gaze landed on the Donghuang bell tower. Because her injuries had not fully recovered, her lips were still a little pale. Looking at her from afar made her look even more pitiful. Unfortunately, other than them, no one else could see it. The women beside her looked at each other. Actually, they did not need to ask to know why Jiang Jiwon was like this. During this period of time, the incident at the Yuntian Tower had already spread. In the world of divine ruins, although the various sects and clans did not have frequent interactions with each other, some important news still spread very quickly. Almost everyone in the academy knew about Jiang Jiwon's feelings for Rong Xiu. In fact, one of the main reasons why she came to Lingxiao College was because of this. The Immortal Water Mausoleum, where Jiang Jiwon was from, was one of the 28 tribes under the Yuntian Tower, and it was the strongest. Therefore, many people thought that she would be the woman standing next to Rong Xiu. But who knew that, looking at Jiang Jiwon's dazed and absent-minded appearance, she probably would not listen to anything they said to her at this moment. Another woman with a sharp chin pursed her lips and suddenly said, "Z, you're not like you at all now. If it were in the past, you would definitely be thinking about how to get a good result in the examination at the beginning of the month." Hearing this, Jiang Jiwon was stunned for a moment and then smiled bitterly. What's the use of fighting over these things now? He won't even look. In the past, she fought for these things only because Rong Xiu was too outstanding when he was in the academy. She thought that if she could be more powerful, then the gap between them would be smaller. As long as she could get close to him, it didn't matter what she did. But now, everything had lost its meaning. The princess consort was already decided. No matter what she thought or did, she could not change this fact. That's why you have to perform well. The woman with the sharp chin looked as if she expected better from Jiang Jiwon. She stretched out her index finger and lightly tapped Jiang Jiwon's forehead. After chasing him for so long, are you going to give up just like that? It's especially at times like this that you have to show your excellence. Let everyone, including him, realize how regretful it is that he didn't choose you. A glimmer of light flashed across Jiang Jiwon's eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. Outstanding, it seemed that they were still unaware of Shangguan Yu's performance at the Yuntian Tower. If they knew that that woman was indeed stronger than her, they probably wouldn't have said such things. Zun, think about it. You're in the academy, and so is Rong Xiu. As long as you're willing, what's the point of that princess consort? Jiang Jiwon was slightly taken aback. What do you mean? Chapter 1121. Think about it. Your results in the academy are outstanding and dazzling. However, that princess consort doesn't even have the qualifications to become a disciple of the academy. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. It just so happens that Rong Xiu will be staying in the academy for a while. As long as you stay by his side for a long time, the scales in his heart will definitely be biased towards you. The sharp-chinned lady revealed a coquettish and smug expression. None of the men can resist such a gentle attack. That's right. Zun, you've liked His Highness for so long. You're not willing to give up just like that, right? Actually, from our point of view, we've always thought that you're the one. Now that someone has snatched away your love, can you really bear it? The few ladies chimed in one after another, and soon, Jiang Jiwon was swayed. She pursed her lips tightly and frowned slightly. Her expression was conflicted and nervous. Actually, she originally wanted to say that Shangguan Yu was actually much more powerful than they had expected. For some reason, the Yuntian Tower didn't seem to have much news about Shanghai Yu. It was as if someone had deliberately blocked the news, so outsiders thought that Shanghai Yu was just an ordinary girl. However, Jiang Jiwon knew very well that, whether it was in terms of appearance, talent, or other aspects, Shanghai Yu was definitely not inferior to her. More importantly, Rong Xiu doted on her. He did like that girl. He even did so much for her. However, Jiang Jiwon couldn't bring herself to say these words. She couldn't admit that that girl was more outstanding than her. After a long while, she finally exhaled. I have my own plans. In the room, Chu Luiwei sat cross-legged and held her breath. After a while, she raised one hand. A dazzling light appeared on the tip of her finger. Very quickly, this one pearl transformed into several pearls, illuminating her entire palm. Jingshan finger transformed into Jingshan palm. Then Chu Luiwei slowly clenched her fist. Streams of origin power surged into his fist. It glowed faintly. Chu Luiwei punched out. Astral winds rose abruptly. In the void, black cracks suddenly appeared. Those were the spatial cracks that had been torn apart by the tyrannical fist wind. At this moment, the surrounding heaven and earth energy seemed to be affected by this punch, producing subtle fluctuations. Buzz. Chu Luiwei's pupils shrank. Just as the formless wave was about to rush out of the room, a majestic aura suddenly rushed out. Boom! The sound of a violent collision was heard. It was the power of this punch that hit the barrier that had just been set up. After a short but violent tremor, the barrier barely stabilized. Phew! Girl, you're scaring me to death. Taizu appeared in the room at some point. He patted his non-existent heart with a look of lingering fear. If word of this gets out, I think you'll be dealt with by those elders tonight. Chu Luiwei coughed. I didn't expect it either. She slowly withdrew her power, then pulled back her fist and looked at it carefully. Her palm was fair and the knuckles were distinct. But if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, no one would have known that this slender hand actually contained such astonishing power. The power of the Awakening God Fist is actually so strong. This was the first time she had used the Awakening God Fist. After breaking through to the 7th rank, the force in her body had greatly increased, and her control of the Awakening God Palm had reached the extreme. She thought that it was time to try to cultivate the Awakening God Fist. Anyway, this Awakening God art was one body. The Awakening God Fist was transformed from the previous Awakening God Finger and Awakening God Palm, so to Chu Luiwei, it didn't consume too much energy. But she really didn't expect that the power of this Awakening God Fist would be so strong. That punch just now clearly showed signs of mobilizing the heaven and earth energy. This is an earth peak martial skill. What do you think? Taizu blew his beard and stared at her. But to be able to mobilize the heaven and earth energy, it's not a heaven rank martial skill. But the current you has a divine power in your body. Taizu shook his head. This Awakening God Fist is very profound, and its potential is huge. Just now, you just casually attacked, and you already faintly touched the edge of the heaven rank martial skill. If you cultivate it well in the future, with your strength, you might really be able to unleash an even stronger power. Chu Luiwei was also secretly shocked, and then suddenly remembered the scene when she saw the Awakening God art. That's right. The Awakening God art also contained the power of the heavenly Tao. It was just that her level was too low and her strength was too weak, so she had never been able to understand it thoroughly. Later on, she encountered many things one after another, so she temporarily put this matter aside. Now that she thought about it, how could an ordinary earth rank martial skill have such power? Girl, you should cultivate this martial skill well. In the future, it might become your trump card. Taizu said seriously. Chu Luiwe nodded. I'll help you guard. You should comprehend it well. After Taizu finished speaking, he strengthened the power of the barrier to prevent the movements from being detected by the people outside. Thank you, Taizu. Chu Luiwe thanked him and quickly restrained her thoughts. She closed her eyes and recalled the awakening god art. Chu Luiwe had always felt that the awakening god art in her mind was messy about the awakening god fist. But now, unknowingly, Chu Luiwe actually vaguely felt a subtle pattern. She once again circulated the force in her body and raised her right hand. The red force suddenly surged out. It wrapped around her palm. Then, her palm began to slowly turn in the air and slowly clenched into a fist. When her hand formed a fist, her entire palm was already enveloped by a resplendent light. And vaguely, it seemed to have become somewhat transparent. A terrifying aura was emitted from it. Taizu, who was standing at the side, was secretly shocked when he saw this. This awakening god art was indeed comparable to a heaven-rank martial skill. This girl's luck, isn't it too good? Chu Luiwe did not know what Taizu was thinking. She kept recalling the awakening god fist's formula in her mind while constantly pouring the force into her hand. If she opened her eyes at this moment, she would see that as her force poured in, her palm also became more and more transparent. This would almost make people wonder if this hand would become completely transparent after she finished cultivating. As time passed, the force in Chu Luiwe's hand became stronger and stronger, and the vast pressure contained in it was also constantly increasing. Taizu's eyes were fixed on it. For some reason, he also inexplicably became nervous. The dazzling light shone on Chu Luiwe's face, making her originally fair and jade-like face look even clearer and cleaner. At a certain point, Chu Luiwe suddenly opened her eyes. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly, and her pitch-black eyes reflected a boundless light. She punched out. Taizu widened his eyes in shock. The barrier he had set up was easily broken by Chu Luiwe's punch. Chapter 11:22. Taizu waved his sleeves, and two more forces flew out to stabilize the barrier. The shattered part of the barrier was quickly covered by a thin layer of glittering glass. Boom! The forces of both sides collided again. Bang! One of the fist winds could not be stopped, and the door flew out. Looking at the empty door, Taizu's expression was very interesting. Junior brother Chu Yu. Junior brother Chu Yu? What's wrong with you? What happened? Zhong Sun's worried voice came from outside. Taizu's figure flashed and quickly disappeared, and he immediately withdrew the barrier. Chu Luiwe opened his eyes. The room was in a mess. But fortunately, Taizu's barrier helped her remove most of the power, so it did not cause any more serious consequences. Junior brother Chu Yu. You are, Zhong Sun, who came to the door, was shocked. Even though it was night, he could still barely see the scene in the room with the help of the bright moonlight. Senior brother Zhong Sun, don't worry. Chu Luiwe stood up and smiled. I was just studying a martial technique just now and didn't control it well, so, martial technique? Zhong Sun's expression eased. He glanced at the door that was already dead, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Then you should have chosen a spacious place to practice. In the house, it was a moment of negligence this time. It won't happen again. Chu Luiwe smiled. That's good. Not to mention the other things in our academy, there are many places for cultivation. Why do you have to do it in the house? Junior brother Chu Yu, you are a celestial physician. Why do you have to spend so much effort on cultivation? Before Chu Luiwe could answer, his expression changed, revealing a look of understanding. You are a dual cultivator? Chu Luiwe pondered for a moment. I am indeed cultivating as a martial artist. Zhong Sun did not notice the mystery of these words and said, I see. It seems that you are quite talented in this area. However, junior brother Chu Yu, since you have such top-notch talent in celestial physician, it is better to focus on this. Zhong Sun's words were rather direct. Even in Lingxiao College, celestial physician students were proud of themselves. Chu Luiwe chuckled and nodded. Thank you for your advice, senior brother Zhong Sun. Zhong Sun took a few more glances and gave a few more instructions before leaving. Muttered Chu Liwei softly as she looked at the door that was dazzled beyond recognition. This door is too weak. I'll have to get a sturdier one tomorrow. It's not about the door. Taizu's voice suddenly sounded, as if he was suppressing something. Girl, why didn't you restrain yourself earlier? My old bones can't take it anymore. Chu Liwei. Taizu, when did you get a bone? That's not important. In any case, you must be more careful in the future. Chu Liwei made a sound of agreement. After a while, he asked again, what do you think? Are you really okay? Taizu snorted coldly. Ask me this question when you break through to the 9th rank. Chu Liwei laughed. It seemed that it was a false alarm. After receiving Taizu's affirmative answer, Chu Liwei was relieved. She did not continue to study the God-stunning fist. Instead, she began to devour the force, hoping to break through as soon as possible. However, she did not know that Taizu's mood had not calmed down for a long time. This girl was only at the early stage of the 7th rank, but she was already able to exert such strength from the peak of the Earth rank martial skill. It was simply too shocking. Was it because she was different from ordinary people, or was it because of that martial skill? That thing will appear at any time. This time, it will definitely attract countless people to chase after it crazily. If the item is left behind, Elder Bo Yen was saying something with a serious expression. The hall was silent, and everyone's expressions became more solemn. However, at this moment, Rong Xiu suddenly turned around, frowned slightly, and looked in a certain direction. This movement, Elder Bo Yen paused. What's wrong, Rong Xiu? Is there a problem? Rong Xiu retracted his gaze, and the ripples in his eyes were completely hidden. Nothing. Please continue, Elder. He leaned on the chair and placed one hand on the armrest. His posture was as lazy and noble as ever. However, his eyes drooped slightly. No one saw the faint light that flashed across his eyes. With this personality, he really could not calm down. He actually came back to the academy by himself. He rubbed his temples with a slight headache and looked at Elder Wanzheng. After a moment, he leaned over slightly and asked in a low voice, Elder Wanzheng, were you delayed by something just now? Elder Wanzheng waved his hand. Sigh. It's a bunch of brats who broke the rules and bet on pills again. They said that there was a new kid in the academy who had good eyesight in this aspect and did not know the rules, so they gathered a group of people. However, they have already been punished. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. This plot was really familiar. Why are you asking this? Nothing. Rong Xiu's thin lips curled up slightly and gave Elder Wanzheng a warm and polite smile. Elder Wanzheng felt that something was amiss. Why is this brat looking at me with a hint of sympathy? What does this mean? When he wanted to take a closer look, he saw that Rong Xiu had already retracted his gaze and tilted his head slightly, as though he was seriously listening to Elder Bo Yan's words. Elder Wanzheng suppressed the strange feeling in his heart. It was not that the academy had never recruited troublemakers before, but most of them would be obedient after being lectured. Except for that time, Elder Wanzheng thought of something and trembled. He quickly suppressed his thoughts. The meeting in the Donghuang Bell Tower lasted until the 2nd day. However, everyone present was strong, and it was fine for them to stay up for a night occasionally. I'll have to trouble all of you for the rest. Elder Bo Yen stood up and said sincerely, Elder Bo Yen is too polite. We are students of the academy, and it's only right for us to do our best for the academy. It's our honor to be able to do what we can for the academy. Everyone said. Elder Bo Yen nodded. Everyone left one after another. Rong Xiu moved slowly and unknowingly he was at the back. Some people did not forget to look back as they left, but they did not say anything. They knew very well that the academy elders treated Rong Xiu differently from them. However, there was nothing they could do about it as he was too strong. It would be strange if the elders did not trust him. After the crowd dispersed, only Rong Xiu and a few elders were left in the surroundings. Rong Xiu, why haven't I heard you mention your consort before? Elder Bo Yan's expression softened and became more amiable as he asked, I heard she's an outsider? As soon as he said those words, the other elders also turned to look at him. According to Rong Xiu's current status, it was inappropriate for him to marry an outsider as his consort. Rong Xiu smiled and nodded. Elder Bo Yan looked at his expression carefully, and his heart skipped a beat. Rong Xiu should really like that girl. Another elder beside him shook his head and sighed. Rong Xiu, you're too stubborn. Now that you're the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, how can you marry such a girl as your consort? Chapter 11:23. Here it comes. Rong Xiu had already expected this, so when he heard this, there was no displeasure on his face. Instead, he smiled slightly. It seems that the letter from the Mausoleum of Immortal Water has already been sent to Elder Danqing. Elder Danqing frowned. The Mausoleum of Immortal Water didn't say much to this old man. You were the one who did it, so it will naturally spread. Could it be that you still want to hide this matter? His tone couldn't be considered good. The people beside him fell silent for a moment. Although they more or less had the same thought in their hearts, they wouldn't be as straightforward as Elder Danqing, nor would they be as agitated as him. The reason why he was particularly concerned about this matter was because he was Jiang Jiwan's master. His beloved disciple had suffered such grievances and was sad and upset. As her master, he naturally felt unhappy. Even when he looked at Rong Xiu, he felt a bit of an eyesore. The consort selection ceremony was held publicly. Rong Xiu smiled faintly. Everything that happened was witnessed by everyone with their own eyes. Elder Danqing choked. If that's the case, Rong Xiu's actions can't be considered as an intentional cover-up. If Elder Danqing has any questions about what happened that day, I can immediately answer them for you, lest you listen to some unreliable rumors and get angry for no reason. Rong Xiu was still smiling. However, these seemingly polite words were as sharp as a knife. Elder Danqing's expression was even uglier. Are you saying that Ziyuan lied and deliberately slandered you? I didn't say that. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. It's just that the person involved is here. No matter how much outsiders say, it's not as convenient and accurate as me saying it to you personally, isn't it? Outsiders. It was a simple and casual word, but it instantly separated Jiang Ziyuan and drew a clear line between them. Elder Danqing's chest felt stifled. He didn't want to get involved in this matter, but after Jiang Jiwan returned, she looked dejected and sad. He felt very distressed and couldn't help but question Rong Xiu. But Rong Xiu was right. Jiang Jiwan was indeed an outsider to him. Not to mention that Jiang Jiwan's status was not equal to his. Rong Xiu had never shown any interest in Jiang Jiwan. In the end, it was all Jiang Jiwan's wishful thinking. All right, this is Rong Xiu's own matter. He has always been a wise man of his own mind. Since he has made his decision, we shouldn't interfere. Elder, said Elder said. Elder also nodded. That's Rong Xiu. If you have time in the future, invite your princess consort to the academy. Rong Xiu had spent quite some time in Lingshao College. The dean and elders of the college were all seniors to him. It was normal for him to make such a request. Rong Xiu paused for a rare moment, as if he was hesitating. Let's wait for a while. Now that the college is in trouble, bringing her here rashly might delay the elders' important matters. Also, she needs some time to get used to it. They didn't expect Rong Xiu to reject him. The elders looked at each other in surprise. Who exactly is that girl for Rong Xiu to be so protective of her? All right. Elder Bo Yan knew that this was Rong Xiu's concession, so he didn't say anything else. At this moment, a melodious bell sound came from outside. Buzz. It was the sound of the Donghuang bell. The assessment at the beginning of the month is about to begin. Elder Wanzheng looked at Elder Bo Yan. According to tradition, Elder Bo Yan had to appear on such occasions. Elder Bo Yan nodded slightly. Let's go out. Rong Xiu, you leave first. I'll accompany the elders to take a look. Rong Xiu interrupted Elder Bo Yan and said with a smile. The elders were all astonished. Really? Rong Xiu had always been cold and didn't like crowds. Even when he was in the college, he didn't appear on such occasions often. Let alone now? Yes. Rong Xiu's smile deepened. I suddenly remembered that I haven't seen such a scene for a long time, and I miss it. The elders won't object to it, right? Of course not. If those brats know that you're going to appear, I wonder how excited they'll be. Elder Wanzheng laughed. Rong Xiu's excellence was well known in the college. Even though he had left the college, his reputation was still well known in the college. Many students secretly looked up to him as a role model, hoping that one day they could become as good as him. Or even surpass him. Rong Xiu was silent for a moment, then smiled. Probably. Early in the morning, when the sun had just risen, Qingming Square was already bustling with noise and excitement. Countless students gathered here. Their young faces were full of vitality, and they all had different expressions. Excitement, agitation, nervousness, fighting spirit. They were either in groups of 3 or 5 or standing alone on the square. Their eyes were focused on the Eastern Emperor Bell Tower. So this is the test at the beginning of the month. I wonder if I can successfully become his disciple. I've been preparing for half a month. There shouldn't be any problems. My head hurts. I haven't understood the Xian formation that the teacher showed me last month. I'm afraid I'm in trouble this time. I just broke through 2 days ago. Who knows, my ranking might even rise today. Everyone was discussing. The gathering of all kinds of voices made the originally quiet square much livelier. Chu Luwe and Zhong Sun stood in the celestial physician's area. However, their position was more remote, and they were connected to the Xian master's area not far away. Standing here, they could still hear some of the Xian master's low murmurs. Chu Luwe followed everyone's gaze and looked at the Eastern Emperor Bell Tower. Why does everyone seem to be looking over there? Zhong Sun's expression could not hide his excitement. Because the Azure Cloud leaderboard will appear on the Eastern Emperor Bell Tower soon. Chu Luwe was stunned. Azure Cloud leaderboard? Digression, it's finally over today. Congratulations. What kind of mooncakes are everyone eating? Chapter 11:24. She wasn't unfamiliar with this name. When she was sparring with Rong Xiu, she had unintentionally blurted out this name. But at that time, she didn't know what the Azure Cloud role was. So it was the Lingxiao College's role. You don't know? Looking at Chu Liuyue's expression, Zhong Sun thought that she had never heard of it, so he patiently explained. The Azure Cloud role is the overall role of Lingxiao College for 10,000 years. It records all the top geniuses that have appeared in the long history of the college. This role is divided into a total of 4 sub-roles. They are martial artist, mystic master, celestial physician, and weapon refiner. And they are also respectively listed on the walls of the East, South, West, and Northeast Bell Tower. As long as you are a student of the college and below the age of 30, you have the chance to rely on your own strength to ascend the Azure Cloud role. The day at the beginning of every month is a big day in the college. Some people take the test to become a disciple, some seek treasures, but the most important thing is to ascend the role. As long as your name is on the Azure Cloud role, it will be much better. Even the dean and elders will think highly of you. Chu Luiyue understood. No wonder, what? I was just thinking that no wonder everyone is so excited and attaches so much importance to the Azure Cloud role. Chu Luiyue crossed her arms, tapped her chin, and smiled as if she was in deep thought. It was no wonder that she didn't remember anything and could actually say those words when she was sparring with Rong Xiu. It seemed that surpassing Rong Xiu's ranking on the Azure Cloud role was also one of her obsessions in the past. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a little curious and looked at the grand and simple black wall of the East Emperor Bell Tower. The Azure Cloud role. I wonder which role Rong Xiu is on and what is his ranking? Creak. A door of the East Emperor Bell Tower opened. Someone walked out from inside. This movement caused the noisy crowd to immediately quiet down. They all knew that the elders were about to come out. But very quickly, everyone discovered that in the group of people that walked out, other than the familiar elder, there were actually more than 10 young men and women. The Donghuang Bell Tower had always only been accessible to the most influential elders of the academy. The sudden appearance of such a group of people naturally raised suspicions. Soon, people recognized some of the people among them. Hey, isn't that the young master of the family way? Why is he here? Young master of family way? Which family way? Who else could it be? Naturally, it's the Qin Gupa family way. Hiss, so it's him. It was rumored that this young master Wei was extremely talented and highly regarded by the family Wei. He was almost the most likely successor of the family Wei. However, didn't he finish his studies last year and leave the academy? Why are you here now? Look, the one beside her seemed to be the meteor sect's second miss, Shi. Why is she here? Haven't you noticed that those are the disciples of first-rate aristocratic families who came from the academy? Someone whispered. Everyone looked and it seemed to be true. Most of them had already left the academy. Only a few of them were still studying in the academy. When these people gathered together, the power behind them was enough to shake the entire Divine Ruins world. It was no wonder that the crowd had such a reaction. Suddenly, the crowd quieted down. The surrounding space seemed to have stagnated for a moment. Chu Luiwei felt the subtle change in the atmosphere and looked up. Because she was standing very far away and at the back, she couldn't see the appearance of the person who walked out clearly. However, when the tall and slender man in white walked out, Chu Luiwei recognized him almost instantly. The sky was clear and the sun was just right. The black Donghuang Bell Tower behind him emitted a faint cold aura. The reliefs on the bronze door were lifelike and dignified, reflecting the white Qingming square. He was the third color that was the brightest and most eye-catching among the two extreme colors. He was dressed in white and looked like an immortal. However, his eyelids were slightly drooping. A faint shadow was cast on his jade-like face. From afar, he looked like a white jade immersed in the dark blue sea. Once he appeared, he easily took away everyone's line of sight. There were many handsome men and beautiful women among the people who walked out. However, compared to him, they instantly lost their flavor and became small and blurry. The crowd fell silent because of his appearance. Then he seemed to feel something and looked up. Those eyes. Everyone who was touched by this gaze felt their minds tremble. They didn't know what kind of person could have such a pair of unfathomable eyes. They seemed to be able to swallow everything. However, in the blink of an eye, there seemed to be an additional layer of gentleness that could make people recklessly sink into it. Some women looked at him in a daze. Their faces had already turned red. However, he was only looking at one person at the end of his line of sight. Chu Luiwei and his eyes met. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes. Chu Luiwei's heart trembled slightly. Then she inexplicably felt a little guilty and looked away. However, she regretted it the moment she looked away. What was she guilty about? It should be Rong Xiu who was guilty. He must have known that she had come to Lingshao College before, but he deliberately didn't mention it. He even deliberately avoided her when news came from Lingshao College. In the end, he was the one who lacked confidence. However, when Chu Luiwei looked up again, she saw that there were a few more elders beside Rong Xiu. They were whispering something to Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu was very tall. For the sake of convenience, he lowered his head slightly and seemed to be listening carefully. Then he nodded. His expression was indifferent and calm. The dozen or so young men and women who walked out earlier were standing at the edge of the crowd. In comparison, Rong Xiu's position was very special. He was actually standing together with the elders. Moreover, it seemed that the elders' attitude towards Rong Xiu was also very friendly and polite. At this moment, the crowd finally regained their senses and started whispering. God, who is that man? He's so handsome. If he's a student of the school, he should have some impression of him. He looks a little like a person. Could it be Yunnan Tower? Isn't that the holy son of Yuntian Tower, Rong Xiu? I heard that he left the school a few years ago. I didn't expect to see him today. Rong Xiu. It's the rumored Rong Xiu. The crowd exclaimed. Elder Bo Yen had sharp ears and eyes. Naturally, he easily caught everyone's reaction. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile. As expected, once you arrive, this must be the scene. If not, I'll let you take over the assessment at the beginning of the month, Rong Xiu said humbly. I don't dare to take over Elder Bo Yan's responsibility. Please. Elder Bo Yan laughed and took a step forward. I am Bo Yan. On behalf of Lingxiao College, I welcome everyone. Chapter 1125. His kind and dignified gaze quickly swept across the crowd. His low and deep voice was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. Chu Luiwei only felt as if thunder had exploded beside her ears, and her blood also flowed along with it. It was enough to show how powerful he was. Her heart skipped a beat, and she couldn't help but be secretly shocked. Lingxiao College indeed lived up to its reputation. Elder Bo Yan's words made many people excited, especially those new students who had just entered the school within this 1 month. Being able to enter Lingxiao College and cultivate here was something that many people dreamed of. At this moment, standing here and listening to the elder of the school speak, how could they not be excited? Today's assessment, as usual, is divided into 2 parts. Elder Bo Yan placed one hand behind his back. The first part, New Students' Apprenticeship. The new students who entered the school last month, after this period of understanding, should have roughly found the teacher that they most like. As long as you can pass the corresponding assessment today, you can successfully enter the school. If you don't pass the assessment, you will be given another chance to choose another teacher. But if you still don't pass the second time, then you will have to leave the school immediately. You can only come again after 3 months. The crowd was silent. The nervousness in many people's eyes became more obvious. Lingxiao College is indeed strict, Chu Luiwei muttered softly. Even if you passed the first round of assessment by the elders in Fang State City, it didn't mean that you were officially a student of the school from now on. Within the school, there were even more stringent assessments waiting for them. One had to know that the previous assessment standards were already very high, and with this one, who knew how many people would be filtered out? Many geniuses who were revered and envied outside didn't even have the qualifications to enter here. But Lingxiao College had this kind of capital. What they wanted was the existence at the top of the line. Junior brother Chu Yu, don't worry, with your talent and strength, you will definitely pass the assessment smoothly. Zhong Sun thought that she was worried about him, so he comforted her. Chu Luiwei smiled in response and didn't explain further. The second part is the assessment of the students and the change of the green cloud role. This will depend on your own abilities. Chu Luiwei could clearly feel that when Elder Bo Yan mentioned the Azure Sky proclamation, everyone's emotions had clearly become even more agitated. Good. Let's not talk about anything else. The monthly assessment begins. With Elder Bo Yan's command, all the elders went to their positions. Soon, the figures of several elders appeared in the center of the square. All freshmen, step forward. Elder Wan Jing shouted in a deep voice. After a moment of silence, a young man walked out. He had been standing in the crowd of mystic cultivators and was running towards a few mystic cultivator elders. With the first one, the rest of the freshmen also walked out one after another. Zhong Sun looked at Chu Luiwei. Just as he was about to pat her shoulder to encourage her, he suddenly felt a chill sweep over him. His movement stiffened, and he subconsciously looked in the direction of that cold aura, but he didn't see anything. It was as if that moment of fear was just an illusion. Chu Luiwei had already walked forward. Zhong Sun could only wave his hand from behind to cheer her on. Junior brother Chu Yu, do your best. Although this voice wasn't loud, it still attracted the attention of many people around. This was because the name Chu Yu was simply too popular in the academy these 2 days. For 3 consecutive days, he won all the pill gambling matches. One had to know that even many old foxes in the academy might not be able to achieve this level. In addition to yesterday's farce on the last day of the month, hundreds of people were implicated and had their points deducted. Even if Chu Luiwei didn't want to make it public, she had no choice. That's Chu Yu. All sorts of voices came from the crowd. He's the one who's so daring to gather people for pill gambling? The corner of Chu Liyue's eyes twitched slightly. I thought he would be a fierce man, but I didn't expect him to be a pretty boy. He looks rather delicate and pretty. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, no one would believe that this kid is so daring, right? Chu Liyue, something doesn't seem right. I just want to earn some points easily. Why am I suddenly being accused of such a big crime? Get rid of me. If I knew that rule, I definitely wouldn't have broken it, okay? Hence, Chu Liyue welcomed everyone's gazes, passed through the crowd, and walked to the front. This was an empty space that was specially set aside. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and looked forward. Right in front of her was the Donghuang Bell Tower. Downstairs, there were a few elders and a few young people who looked like students. 4 men and 1 woman. Including Chu Liyue, there were only 6 people on the celestial physician's side who needed to be assessed to become a disciple. After Chu Liyue stood still, she looked at both sides. On the left was the Xian master, and there were about 20 new students. Chu Liyue quickly saw Lin Qifei standing inside. After not seeing him for a while, his body seemed to have recovered. His originally pale face was now a little more lively and rosy. It was no longer as fragile as before, where it seemed like it would be destroyed with a casual touch. He was dressed in a green robe. Although his figure was slightly thin, his gentle and distant temperament made him appear very otherworldly. As if sensing something, Lin Qifei glanced over. Chu Liyue retracted her gaze and looked to her right. There were no new students on this side. Oh, there aren't even any elders. Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly. This is really straightforward. When Elder Wensi brought them in, he had mentioned that there were very few blacksmiths in the academy. However, Chu Liyue did not expect it to be so few. From where they were standing, they could not see the situation on the Xian master's side. However, they knew that there should be the most people there. Which one of you wants to go first? Elder Wanjing stood with his hands behind his back and slowly swept his gaze across them. He was actually not very fierce, but it was a pity that he was born with a dignified square face. When he was not smiling, it was easy for him to give off an extremely heavy pressure. Those who were not familiar with him would easily misunderstand that he had a bad temper. The few students standing in front of Chu Liyue actually felt a little timid and nervous when they were questioned like this. For a moment, no one spoke. Elder Wanzheng was already used to this scene, so he didn't mind. His gaze turned, and it landed on Chu Liyue. Could you go first? Most of the new students who had just entered the academy were filled with reverence and curiosity. It was easy for them to not be able to let go of everything. However, this Chu Yu was different. He had only been here for a few days, but he had already caused a pile of trouble. With the previous incident as a foundation, his psychological tolerance should be much higher now. Everyone looked over. Chu Liyue took a step forward. A pair of deep and tangible eyes landed on her shoulder. Chapter 11:26. Have you decided on a teacher? Elder Wanjing asked. Chu Liyue nodded. May I have the honor of becoming your student? Elder Wanzheng was taken aback. The other elders beside him also turned to look at Zhang Xian with peculiar gazes. Really? You really think so? It wasn't strange for Elder Wanzheng to have such a reaction. Even though he was one of the stronger celestial physician elders, he had a strict personality and had high expectations for his students. Thus, he wasn't the best choice for his students. One must know that the cultivation of a celestial physician was different from that of others. Most of the time, they would need a teacher to guide them step by step. Under such circumstances, most of them would choose a teacher who was gentle and easy to get along with. At the very least, they wouldn't have to live under pressure all the time. Elder Wanzheng had been like that for the past few years. It was said that he hadn't accepted a disciple for 3 whole years. It wasn't because no one wanted to acknowledge him as their teacher, but because none of them had passed his examination. Thus, everyone was surprised to hear Chu Liyue's choice. You have to be prepared to endure hardships if you want to be my student. Elder Wanjing looked at him suspiciously. Are you sure you can do it with that small body of yours? Chu Luiwei chuckled softly. You'll know whether I can do it or not when you see it for yourself. Elder Wanjing laughed heartily. You're young, but you sure know how to boast. Very well. Since you've said so, I'll test you personally. It was rare for Elder Wanjing to lose his temper, and this piqued his interest. He waved his hand and took out 2 pieces of paper. With a flick of his wrist, the 2 pieces of paper flew toward Chu Luiwei. She raised her hand and caught them. Elder Wanjing smiled. What's written here is the formula for the pill that I've recently concocted. However, one of them is real while the other is fake. As long as you can tell which one is real, you'll win. As soon as he finished speaking, many people looked at each other. Test the authenticity of the formula? Isn't that too easy? What do you know? That was a prescription written by Elder Wanjing himself. How can it be seen through so easily? Exactly. In the past 3 years, Elder Wanjing had only used this move when assessing new students. Even now, no one had been able to pass this test. I heard that Chuyu 16 is already an 8th rank celestial physician. Maybe he can do it? I don't think so. In the past, there were others who were as outstanding as him, or even better. Didn't Elder Wanjing take a liking to them? I wonder why Elder Wanjing's standards are so high. Sigh. Chu Luiwei looked at the 2 prescriptions in his hand. This piece of paper was the size of a normal piece of paper, but the names of over 100 medicinal herbs were listed on it. Such a small and thin piece of paper simply couldn't fit them all. Not long after she took a look at it, Chu Luiwei realized that the words on it had disappeared. Then, a few lines of words appeared on the clean paper. This was the content immediately before. 4 medicinal herbs alone, the words appeared a total of 4 times. The 5th time was the final treatment. After Chu Luiwei roughly read through it, the words disappeared again. This time, there were no other traces. This also meant that even if Chu Luiwei was fully focused from the start to the end, she could only barely finish reading 1 prescription. It was extremely difficult for an ordinary person to finish reading it, let alone distinguish the real from the fake. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath and looked at the other one. The same thing happened again. Fortunately, Chu Luiwei was prepared this time. She didn't look as nervous and uneasy as before. In fact, before the last line of words disappeared, she had already retracted her gaze and returned the 2 prescriptions. Many people sighed with regret. It seemed that Chu Yu couldn't make it. Well, how many people in the world could pass such a perverted test? You're not reading anymore? Have you given up? Elder Wanjing took the 2 pieces of paper with an as expected expression. Anyway, he didn't expect anyone to. The first one I read was fake. The second one is real. Chu Luiwei said calmly and seriously. What? Elder Wanjing didn't react immediately. His expression froze for a moment. Chu Luiwei smiled slightly and explained in more detail. Although the blood cinnamon can refresh one's spirit and nourish one's qi, when placed together with the white bamboo fruit, the medicinal effect will be greatly neutralized. Moreover, there are 2 white bamboo fruits, which add a bit of coldness. It's harmful. Also, plum blossom caltrip can't be put in together with the frozen stone. The smell of plum blossom caltrip will greatly affect the thickness of the ice layer on the frozen stone. If you're not careful, the frozen stone will be completely destroyed and lose its medicinal effect. Chu Luiwei's voice was very soft as she spoke tirelessly. The surroundings gradually quieted down. Elder Wanjing's eyes slowly widened. Do you still want to continue? Chu Luiwei asked. After saying so much, anyone who knew a little about celestial physician should be able to understand, right? How can you tell? Elder Wanjing's voice was trembling a little. Chu Luiwei chuckled lightly. Naturally, I saw it with my eyes. No, what I mean is, as Elder Wanjing spoke, he saw the sly smile of the young man opposite him. Elves are intelligent and outstanding. Elder Wanjing's heart beat faster. As a celestial physician, he knew too well how precious this young man's talent was. It wasn't that there weren't people who had a photographic memory, but there were very few people who could be like Chu Yu, who could clearly remember the medicinal ingredients, the dosage, and even the order in which they were refined. The most precious thing was that he was very clear about the characteristics of these pills and had mastered them through a comprehensive study. He had a thorough understanding of them. A thought popped up in Elder Wang Zheng's mind. He finally found a treasure again. There's no need, there's no need. Elder Wang Zheng said repeatedly. His square face, which always looked serious, couldn't hide his excitement at this moment. There was a smile at the corner of his eyes. This is enough. You pass. If he didn't accept this, then he would really be punished by the heavens. Back then he couldn't win against the dean. Now it was finally his turn. Chu Luiwei blinked. Pass? That's it? Well, it seemed that Elder Wang Zheng's request wasn't that high after all. If the surrounding people knew what Chu Luiwei was thinking, they would probably gang up on her. You may have it easy, but have you considered others? Do you know how hard we've been living? Okay. Chu Yu. From today onwards, you're my... Wait. Before Elder Wang Zheng could finish, he was suddenly interrupted. He was stunned. He turned around to look at the other celestial physician and felt a little uneasy. Then, he heard one of them say to Chu Luiwei with a smile. Chu Yu, I wonder if you're interested in joining us? Elder Wang Zheng snorted. They were here to snatch him. Chapter 1127. What are you guys doing here? Didn't you hear Chu Yu say that he wants to be my disciple? Isn't it too much to try and snatch him now? Elder Wang Zheng said bluntly. However, the elders didn't seem to care. This child is new here and doesn't know much about the academy. It's normal for him to make the wrong choice in such a rash situation. It's not too late to let the child take a good look at him before choosing a master. That's right. Wang Zheng, who would be willing to follow you when you're always pulling a long face? They would be scared to death by you. Chu Yu is still young. How can he endure this kind of torture? Chu Yu, I think you should come to my side. I guarantee that you won't be worse than Wang Zheng. The few teachers decided to speak openly about it. Celestial physician geniuses were rare to begin with. How could they not be tempted when they met such an outstanding one? At this time, they had to put their pride aside for the time being. It was more important to snatch the talent. Chu Luiwei was speechless. The celestial physician elders weren't weak at all. The sudden change and the strange style of the scene left the surrounding onlookers dumbfounded. Weren't the elders very arrogant? Weren't the masters all very cold and aloof? What was going on now? The new students who hadn't taken the test had different expressions when they saw the situation. Some were envious, some were jealous, and some were expressionless. Fourth brother, look, I told you that the kid would definitely do it. Luo Yanming looked at the situation from afar and couldn't help but laugh. However, his eyes were still filled with amazement and surprise. He knew that Chu Yu was outstanding, but he didn't expect him to pass Elder Wang Zheng's test. With such talent, as long as he cultivated well in the academy, his future would be limitless. Luo Yanlin nodded slightly. He looked at the young man in a different light. Actually, at the beginning, he did not take Chu Yu seriously. However, from the looks of it now, Chu Yu seemed to be much stronger than he had expected. At the very least, he hadn't seen the elders fighting over a student in public for a long time, especially when they were all proud celestial physician. I didn't expect such a dark horse to appear in this test. Elder Bo Yen, who was standing on the Donghuang bell tower, said in surprise. What a pleasant surprise. Although he didn't cultivate celestial physician, he could see that the young man named Chu Yu was extremely talented. At this moment, Elder's gaze, Elder Bo Yen saw Rong Xiu staring at the young man. But does Rong Xiu have any opinions about that young man? Rong Xiu retracted his gaze, and his lips curved up. She is indeed outstanding. A light flashed across Elder Bo Yan's old and sharp eyes. It's to receive such a compliment. Rong Xiu had never been interested in such things, and he wouldn't even say a word about the people and things that he didn't care about. Moreover, he himself was a top genius. There were very few people who were qualified to be praised and acknowledged by him. Rong Xiu smiled. Someone who can make Elder Wanjing thirst for talent naturally has her abilities. That's true. Elder Bo Yen stroked his beard. Ever since that time, Elder Wanjing had failed to win against the dean. He had become much stricter than before. This was also why he hadn't taken in a disciple for such a long time. After seeing a true genius who was like a gift from the heavens, when he looked at others, he found them to be unbearably vulgar and unworthy of his attention. Elder Wanjing was stubborn. He wouldn't lower his standards. Today, he finally met someone he liked. Of course, he wouldn't give up. There seems to be a few good seedlings over at the martial artist's side. They seem to have potential. But this time, Rong Xiu still had a faint smile on his face. He only grunted. He didn't even look at the martial artist's side. He didn't want to bother with them. Elder Bo Yen was even more confused. He couldn't help but look at Chu Luiyue. This Rong Xiu's personality didn't change. He still didn't care about other things. What he cared about was, "Elders, thank you for your favor." But Chu Yu was Elder Wanjing's disciple first, so facing the aggressive attacks of the elders, Chu Luiyue didn't seem to panic. She smiled politely and rejected them one by one. From start to finish, her mind didn't seem to waver. Seeing her firm attitude, the elders were a little disappointed. But they gave up in the end. They had no choice. If you want to snatch someone, you have to see if the person is willing to be snatched. Elder Wanjing was delighted. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Ha! You want to snatch someone from me? No way." It wasn't easy to get such a precious genius. Of course, he had to nurture her well. Thinking about how he punished Chu Luiyue yesterday, Elder Wanjing had mixed feelings. Fortunately, this child was magnanimous. She didn't take that matter to heart. Otherwise, he would have missed such a great opportunity. "Kid, don't worry. In the future, with me around, I won't let anyone bully you," Elder Wanjing said solemnly. Chu Luiyue smiled. "Then thank you, Elder." Elder Wanjing was overjoyed when he heard her call him master. Good, good, good. When we get back, we'll do the ceremony properly." Elder Wanjing was overjoyed. He was in high spirits. This made the atmosphere at the Celestial Physician's place more relaxed than before. But at the same time, it gave rise to more subtle feelings. Because Chu Luiyue was the first to take the test. She was the first to take the test and performed so well. She even successfully became Elder Wanjing's disciple. Without a doubt, she put a lot of pressure on the rest of the people. Everyone was a celestial physician. They were especially sensitive in this aspect. They could see that Chu Luiyue was indeed very talented in this aspect. If it were them, it would be difficult for them to even memorize the contents of the 2 prescriptions. Not to mention that she could accurately determine the authenticity of the prescriptions and even point out the problems in them. For a moment, there were many people who were envious and jealous. After Chu Luiyue passed the test, she took a step back and stood aside, giving her position to the others. "Next!" an elder shouted. The rest of the people looked at each other. The girl was the first to step forward. "I'll do it." Chu Luiyue glanced at the girl. She seemed to be in her 20s. Her skin was fair, her nose was straight, and her eyes were watery. However, there was a hint of arrogance in her eyes. It made her look cold and distant. She walked straight to Elder Wanjing. "Elder Wanjing, I would also like to be your disciple." She turned her gaze slightly and looked at Chu Luiyue with a hint of provocation. Chu Luiyue chuckled. The students of Lingxiao College were really competitive. Chapter 11:28. Elder Wanjing seemed to be used to this. He laughed and threw out 2 prescriptions. "Good. This is the prescription for another type of pill. Take a look." The woman took it with both hands and glanced at it. Her expression changed quickly. She was standing at the back just now, so she didn't know that the words on the paper would appear alternately. When she saw how relaxed Chu Luiyue was, she thought. Just as she was panicking, the words on the paper disappeared. Soon, new names of herbs appeared. The woman realized that she had underestimated the situation. Cold sweat started to appear on her forehead. Wu Xian is already a 9th grade celestial physician. She should be able to pass the test more easily than Chuyu, right? She's only 21 this year. Her talent isn't much worse than Chuyu's. Maybe Chuyu won't be able to reach Wu Xian's level when he's 21. That's not necessarily true. If Elder Wan Zheng's test is so easy to pass, why hasn't anyone succeeded in the past 3 years? There's no lack of 9th grade celestial physician in there. In that case, how did Chuyu pass? Isn't he a little too smart? Whispers could be heard from the people behind him. Wu Xian became more and more nervous. She was very confident in herself and believed that she was the most outstanding one among these people. Therefore, when he saw everyone praising that Chuyu endlessly, a bit of a competitive heart was born, and he wanted to win against him. But she didn't expect the test to be so difficult. The more she read, the more anxious and confused Wu Xian became. How did Chuyu remember so many herbs at once? He even found the problem with them. Soon, the last line of words disappeared. Wu Xian hurriedly looked at the second sheet. However, her mind was in a mess. Even if she had 10% of her strength, she could only use 70 to 80%. The words on the second piece of paper overlapped and soon disappeared. Are you done reading? Elder Wanzheng looked at the 2 sheets of white paper in her hand and asked. I'm done reading. Wu Xian's voice was weak, and her hands were trembling. Then tell me, which one is real and which one is fake? Wu Xian was silent for a long time. It was only when Elder Wanzheng urged him that he gritted his teeth and gave an answer. The first one is real, the second one is... No, the second one is real. Elder Wanzheng didn't say anything and just stared at her. After a long while, Wu Xian finally gave in. She lowered her head, her cheeks flushed red. She opened her mouth and finally said, "Don't worry. This student does not know." There was a hint of unwillingness and shame in her words. It was her first time admitting her incompetence in front of so many people. However, Elder Wanzheng had seen too many of these situations. He raised his hand and shot out a beam of origin power. The 2 pieces of paper silently turned to dust. You still have a second chance. Wu Xian was shocked. Only then did she remember that Elder Bo Yen had mentioned before that everyone only had 2 chances to be apprenticed. If the first time didn't work, there was always a second time. However, if he failed twice, he would be chased out and unable to officially become a student of the academy. She bit her lip and suddenly looked at Chu Luiyue. Elder Wanzheng, this student has something to ask. Was the prescription that Chuyu looked at the same level as mine? If it wasn't lower level and simpler than hers, how could it be so easy? Chuyu's prescription used a total of 198 types of herbs. Yours is 181. Elder Wanjing glanced at her and smiled. Any other questions? Wu Xian's face turned red and white. No more. With that, she bit her lip and retreated to the side. There seemed to be tears in her eyes. She looked at Chu Luiyue with a complicated gaze. This young man, is he really so much stronger than me? However, Chu Luiyue didn't take her seriously. Because at this moment, that familiar gaze was still on her. She resisted the urge to look up. Next. The celestial physician's side was relatively quiet, but the Xian master and martial artist's side was much more lively. Some succeeded, some failed. Some were happy, some were disappointed. However, this kind of situation happened every month, so the older students were already used to it. Chu Luiyue glanced out of the corner of his eye and happened to see that Lin Qifei seemed to have passed the assessment. His talent was stronger than what he had displayed, so it was naturally not a problem for him to get into Lingxiao College. After that, Luo Yanming also successfully passed. Chu Luiyue glanced at them and thought that Luo Shishir and Zhuoxing shouldn't have any problems. The new student assessment progressed very quickly. The celestial physician's side was the first to finish. Including Chu Luiyue, a total of 4 of the 6 people passed the test. As for the remaining 2, they failed regretfully. The elimination rate for the Xian master's side was almost a quarter. Looking at the dejected young faces, Chu Luiyue's brows twitched slightly. Lingxiao College's threshold was indeed extremely high. However, this atmosphere of joy and sadness quickly dissipated. This was because, after the first part of the new student assessment ended, even more people were eagerly waiting for the Azure Cloud roll. Countless eyes looked at the Donghuang Bell Tower. Elder Bo Yin laughed out loud. Looks like you've all waited anxiously. Fine, I'll release the roll now. As he spoke, he waved his sleeve. The Donghuang bell rang 3 times in a row. Dong, dong, dong. In the next moment, thousands of rays of light flew out, shining brilliantly. Countless rays of light converged on the iron-black wall, forming neatly arranged names. Chu Luiyue looked up. She was looking at the celestial physician roll. A familiar name suddenly appeared. Digression, I'm going out for a whole day today, so I'm very tired. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.